No, it's funny, man. A lot of people think to have a successful podcast, you have to have some comprehensive studio that you dump 10 grand into lighting with.
No.
And it's actually funny. All these boxes, we are going to hang some different lights because my YouTube is our poorest performing platform. But bro, you can start a podcast with virtually nothing. I think these Rodecaster Pros are $500, $600 or something.
Yeah.
And you're off to the races.
Yeah, it's so easy. Like I've done podcasts like in like the most random place, like where we just literally set up 2 chairs like in the middle of my office with people in the background and everything, and those do well. Like people don't.
Bro, people want authentic conversation.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care the quality. Like obviously, it can't sound like it's from a 1980s like boombox where you just push record with the cassette tape. But with like right here, bro, most people, there's plenty of podcasts that people record on their phones with podcast apps.
Yeah,
so
100%.
It's funny, at the event that we met at, which I want to get into because I think that's a cool story.
Yeah.
I had a lot of people coming up to me afterwards asking about podcasting. And I told them, I said, the biggest thing you can do is just be consistent.
Yeah.
That's it, man.
I was going to say that because the episode I listened to, it was, what was the guy's name? Jan? The dude that went to prison.
Oh,
Vietnamese dude.
Yeah. Juan.
Yeah. But like it was
What's
like
his first name? This is driving me nuts.
It was like episode 250 something. I was like, dang.
Yeah,
Greg's consistent.
We've been at it a while, man. I've tried to release or I haven't tried. I have. I've released every single Thursday for 263 Thursdays.
Wow.
And so it's been. The thing is, it's Quan Huynh. That was
Quan Huynh, yeah.
And the cool thing about this journey, man, is like once you just commit to it, I commit to 2 hours a week, and I don't have a theme. I just have cool people doing cool things.
Yeah.
And so that leaves it wide open to take it. Athletes, addicts, entrepreneurs, like any type of path where someone has empowered themselves and become a stronger version of themselves. Let's tell that story.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I think people just overthink it so much. And they're like, oh, I need a theme. I need the perfect studio. I need this. I need that. It's like, dude, like when I started mine, I don't know, it was over a year and a half ago or something.
What's it called?
It's called You Are Not Normal.
Okay.
And I just like one day I was just like, I've been thinking about this for months. Let's just get started.
Yes.
And I was like, I can't do it like by myself. It's so hard for me to sit there and talk into a mic without somebody to like bounce off of. So I just had my camera guy sit next to me. And I was just like, let's just have a conversation. Yeah. And that was my first podcast. And it was like, and then we just started rolling from there. It's getting a lot more traction now. I'm having like bigger names on there and stuff.
Yeah.
Because then now I'm out I started it in North Carolina. Now I'm out in Scottsdale. There's just more people out there to network with. So I'm having bigger guests on, and now it's getting 3,000 views or something on YouTube. So
that's good, man.
It's doing better now, but. It was before I didn't know what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
And I would just tell these old stories of my dad or like something. And I would like try to give a life lesson at the end.
But don't you think just like authentic human connection is what is missing? It's one of the biggest missing components in our culture. A lot of people, they get up, they drive to work. The majority of their waking hours are allocated to something they may not want to be doing around people that they may not necessarily want to be around. And sometimes if they can find a guy that has a vibe that they like and they can just push play, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, man. I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but there's people that start to become fans of the show. They become like friends of yours.
100%.
Even though you've never met them.
Yeah.
And there's been plenty of times when like, I mean, it's not all the time. I don't have a huge platform, but it's big enough to maybe once or twice a month, someone will come up to me and be like, hey, I listened to your show and I really appreciate. And dude, we have friendly energy already.
Yeah.
I'll give them a hug and be like, dude, what's your name? And it's like, that's already a homie. It feels like it's really cool.
Well, that's like why I was so drawn to Bedros. Cause I would hear him speak, and there's so many coaches out there. Right. And like all this noise and social media and like, I'm a skeptic by nature anyway. So
Yeah.
like when I hear all these guys on social media, it's like, and then I meet them, and it's like if I don't vibe with them, I'm like, this guy's not for me, you know. But I was searching for somebody to kind of gravitate towards and go to an event, and I had just moved out to Scottsdale last year in July, and he was doing an event, BK Live in Scottsdale last year. And I just bought a VIP ticket and went to it. And just like me and you met at the last event, I always sit in the front row at every event. Like, give me the VIP, give me everything. I want to be noticed, you know? And it's funny because I sat in the front row, and Pat, who's the MC, always mentions my name the whole time he's up there because I've known him forever. So like people were coming up to me like, who are you? Where'd you come from? Why does everybody know you? And then I had the VIP dinner at that event. And then me and Bedros just happened to be walking back to the like meet and greet or whatever after the dinner together. And it was the first time I actually met him. And I was like, hey, I'm Tony Mont. I'm in the real estate space. And he's like, I know who you are. He goes, people send me your picture all the time because we look alike.
You're Bedros' doppelganger.
Yeah. And then the next day at that event, he like brought me up on stage, and he's like, has everybody met my twin? And it was like fun and stuff. So, so I just like kind of clinged on to him, joined the Legacy tribe, and just, jump on those calls and go to all the events. And it's like, just like you said, though, you vibe with somebody.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if you listen to somebody all the time, like on your podcast, like I listen to certain podcasts, like every episode, and it's like, you almost like become friends with that person just because you feel like you know them so well. Like, cause you just hours and hours of somebody talking.
You really do though.
Yeah.
Like I could tell you a lot about Joe Rogan's life.
Right. Yeah.
He could tell you very little about mine,
Yeah.
And, but at the end of the day, man, I think that's just, like I said, that's the modern way of being able to connect with people, and it works, man.
Yeah. I think like Adam Carolla always says, like, we're living in a world of, safe spaces and octagons.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like there's this whole sect of people, especially in Seattle, after spending a few hours down there, where it's just like, man, you see these people that are so influenced by the government or news or whatever, and they're just all in on like being victims or being disabled in some, like there's something like they want to be victims, right? It's like if they can have that victim mentality and tell everybody that there's a problem with them and that's why they can't succeed, like that's that sect of people. And then there's another sect of people that's, hey, everything's my fault and I'm going to do everything I can to be successful and stronger and smarter and more success, everything. And that's like the difference, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, social media has gotten so big over our life. How old are you, Greg?
44.
All right. So I'm a couple years younger. I'll be 42 next month.
Okay. So we both grew up in the 80s. So.
Grew up in the 80s. Yeah. So like social media has just taken so much storm, and there's so much fake BS out there that some people are clinging to that. But, I think half of everybody is clinging to authenticity and conversations like
dude.
this.
Authenticity is going to make a comeback for the win, because all those people you just talked about that, like, they've been manipulated into basically being these perpetual victims. What they haven't put together yet is that they're falling right into the plans of the people that are orchestrating this.
Yeah.
And bro, I honestly think my next mission in life is to figure out a way to unify all of these people. Because, dude, like, especially in Seattle, it's the trans movement and like radical left movements. And it's like, I think if we could get people together outside of protest or riots or these heated debates where it's like, oh no, I'm going to win. No, I'm going to win. There's always tension, right? Is there a way to just bring back people into just sharing time and space as humans?
It would come down to being an individual.
Yes.
I feel like everybody just wants to be so tribal. I mean, being tribal's in our DNA.
Yeah.
I get it. But at the same time, it's like, man, you can't just be so married to one tribe and not have a free thought.
Exactly, bro.
And that's where we are. Where, like, I don't care if it's, I look at, the far left and far right as a spectrum.
Yep.
And it's like the same people that are super duper MAGA, like 100% everything he says is he like they think he's the deity.
They're the same.
It's
shit
the
as
same
yeah.
person that hates him and thinks he's the devil.
That's exactly,
like
bro. That's exactly right.
You gotta have a free. You gotta have a free mind, and you gotta be okay with both of those tribes casting you out, because I feel like the vast majority of us live there. We just don't have this like tribe, right? We're all individuals, but if you look at the bigger picture, it is a tribe. We are here in this middle ground of being free thinkers.
And bro, I'm telling you, like one of the biggest benefits that has changed my life from opening a jiu-jitsu academy is I've watched tribes build. And it's not just one tribe at the academy, because we have 300 people. We've had like, there's different groups of people that are like drawn to each other, yet everybody gets along too. And it's almost like a social experiment, seeing how people create these circles of friends. But we can create these different circles of friends and they can kind of overlap each other.
Yeah.
But everybody can still be cool too. And I think it's going to be inherent on strong men like us to lead that charge.
Yeah.
Because everything else in our lives is trying to pull us two different directions. We want you on this team. No, we want you on this team. Support this candidate. And the truth is, that's not going to benefit anybody's life.
Right.
They're just stuck in this game that they've been manipulated into playing. And it's actually to the detriment of them living a real life. And so like, I honestly think that's the next mission. My brain has been spinning a lot, I would say, the last couple of weeks. For me, it was seeing, it's just like you said, like I voted Republican. I am typically more right on issues. But when this administration said, we're going to give you the Epstein files on day one, we're going to have massive accountability, we are not going to be engaged in foreign wars, and we're starting to see a lot of these things happen. I have the right as a voter to be like, hey, I don't like this.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. And dude, it's exactly what you just said, which is why I kind of smirked when he said it. People are like, oh no, you don't understand. Donald Trump's playing 4D chess and you can't understand why he's doing what he's doing. But like when I saw him and Elon arguing on Twitter, bro, it felt very immature. And it's like,
of course,
bro,
that's the most immature.
That's the most, bro, this is the leader of the free world and they're acting like children. And, you know, I come from the military where shit never rolls downhill, right? So like a perfect example is in the Ranger Regiment, if your squad leader and your platoon sergeant have a beef with each other, the privates are never going to know it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't benefit the subordinates to know that mom and dad are fighting.
Right.
Right? Now, you don't have to put on a lie necessarily, but you solve problems in-house and you don't push that out on everybody else. And when I saw them doing that, it made me realize like, oh, they're lacking some fundamental leadership principles.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the curtain's drawn now. And it's like, oh, look at how immature this
Yes.
is. Like there's some things that a curtain needs to be closed on.
And so,
it's like, you know, it's like the leaders can't show that side of themselves and still think that the people they're leading are going to respect
that's
them,
right.
you know?
Well, and then some people wrote me and they were like, oh no, you don't understand. This is a choreographed effort for them to move apart, to help Tesla, like all this shit, right? I was like, listen, I don't want to work for people that have to lie to me to make me feel good.
Yeah, I mean, that's even worse.
Give me
if it is orchestrated, it's even worse.
Yeah, exactly
like,
right. Give me the truth, man.
Yeah, that doesn't make it any better. But what you said before about, you know, like what you have here with, you know, there's certain like communities inside your community, right? Or certain little tribes inside this big tribe. It's like that goes back to just, you know, that, and I don't vote anymore because it just like I
think I'm done too, bro.
I cut all the noise out, and you know, for me, it's like if I really think about what I can change, it's really just starts with me and the people I surround myself with, my community, you know, my family, my group of friends. Like that's who I can change, and hopefully that has a ripple effect.
Well, bro, if we all adopt that mentality, the ripple effect will be inevitable.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth. If enough people are choosing to live a good life, pursue excellence, make right, ethical, moral choices, sooner or later, that's going to permeate all of society. Yeah. And I think more and more people are landing on that. My life is so crazy. I became friends with Bedros and Andy Frisella when my story went viral in 2020, right? And I was literally just talking to Andy about this a couple days ago. He's like, dude, this administration's the same as all the other ones, man. You know what I mean? Like, we keep getting, the pendulum just goes back and forth, but we're not moving forward as a country. And that's what I told him. I said, it's up to us to all do our part. Andy's part may be a little bigger than yours and mine just because of his reach, but it doesn't matter. As long as we're all on board, moving society towards excellence, I think that has to be what changes the tides.
Yeah, and we talk about the negativity of social media a lot, or I do. But there is a positivity to it too, like Andy Frisella, Joe Rogan, Bedros, us. Like we're putting this message out as well. And like, where could you find a message like this 20 years ago?
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's exactly right.
Where you can cling on to somebody that's speaking the truth every day, every week on a platform that's free. It's crazy.
No, man, I actually went to a wedding last weekend. I went to New York, and the two guys that I went with, we all met online a long time ago. But now it's like, I have to remind myself, dude, there's a lot of good that comes out of online too. Yeah. So, I mean, I already tell we could just vibe and talk about whatever for hours on end.
Yeah, I'm full-blooded Sicilian. I'll just sit here and talk till my voice is out.
No, I love it, dude. But we met in a very interesting manner because I'll give you a little backstory because I don't know if you know this or not, but Bedros did my podcast 4 months ago or something. And that we'd followed each other. We've written each other some messages and whatnot, but we've never actually like hung out and kicked it together. We recorded a podcast. And at the end of that podcast, he goes, bro, I think you'd be a good fit for BK Live. Would you be interested in speaking? I've never done anything. That was the first time I've done something like that. You
told me that. I couldn't believe it. You did so well up there, dude.
Well, thank you, man. Yeah. And a lot of people echoed that to me. I thought that was pretty funny. That girl, Erin King, remember her?
I saw her speak at some smaller mastermind, and yeah, she was great.
Bro, she pulled me aside, and she's like, oh my God, you slayed today. Yeah. How long have you been doing this? I said, today is day one.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said to you at the break. I was like, do you do a lot of speaking? And you're like, this was my first time. I was like, holy smokes.
But I do this a lot.
Yeah.
And bro, I'll tell you, this with me and you feels no different than being in the theater. And again, I attribute it to jiu-jitsu because I usually have 40 students here a night. And that might not be 1,000 people like filling the Grove, but it's enough people to where you're comfortable just speaking to people.
Yeah.
And I think once you get past that, 10, 30, 1,000, it just kind of feels the same.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking like going into that, I was like, you know, because Joan, Bedros' assistant, is like, do you have a PowerPoint? Do you need us to upload your slides or anything? I was like, fuck, dude, I don't have anything.
Yeah.
And then my wife goes, well, what are you going to talk about? I said, I don't know. I'm just going to go up there and kind of have a conversation, right? So I kind of just, on one hand, I love this about myself. And then the other hand, I'm like, bro, you need to buckle down and like have things a little tighter. I like winging shit.
Me too.
Because the pressure of just winging it makes it authentic. And I told Jenny, I said, if I try and pre-plan some, like, I don't know, what am I going to write 3 paragraphs out? And that's what I'm going to say. If I try and do that, I'm going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
But if I just go up there and talk, and then I said, and also, and I don't know, did you see all the guys in the back in the fur coats by chance?
Fur coats.
Yeah, like 10 of my friends came. They live in Laguna, and they all wore fur coats.
No, I didn't.
They're just being silly, right?
No, I didn't know.
But one of my buddies that was part of the fur coat mafia, he does a lot of guest speaking. And I've done, you know, I went and stayed with him for the weekend. We talked, and we actually talked about how he likes to engage the crowd. Mm-hmm. And he goes, bro, the best speakers in the world, your Oprah Winfrey's, your Tony Robbins, they don't just make it about them. Be very intentional about making it about other people too, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, cool, I'm just going to hop off the stage and put the mic in some people's hands and just get the vibe of the room instead of it being the vibe of me. Mm-hmm. And bro, I handed you the mic and like instantly, I want to say We were talking about courage, or like a story where you implemented some courage and it benefited your life. Well, and I'll just let you go into it. But I was like, oh, fuck, bro. That's a heavy story.
Yeah.
I said, instead of talking about it here on stage, I'd love to have you on the podcast.
And here I am.
And here you are a couple weeks later, which
Yeah.
tells me something very powerful about you, is that you step through doors of opportunity when they open.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You talk about getting lucky. Like, that's the way you get lucky.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Someone somewhere is going to hear this podcast. It's going to resonate with them. And someone's life is going to benefit from you sitting in that chair. It might be yours. It might be someone that hears this.
Yep.
But by putting it out here is what makes this all work.
Yeah. It's the ripple effect again.
And so what I like to do with the show, man, 20 minutes in, is just allow you to kind of give listeners, like, peel back the curtain to your life, where you're from, who you are, what you're about, and then just tell your tale, and we'll just have fun with it, man, and make it a conversation.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all.
Of course.
Great. But yeah, when you said, you stuck the mic in my face, and another reason I like sitting in the front row. Like, if I didn't, we wouldn't be sitting here together.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you were asking about, like, what, when did you execute courage in your life and how did it benefit? And I said, I was facing life in prison, and I got found not guilty. And literally the minute I was off of probation, I moved to California to get away from all that noise from Chicago, and just restarted my life. And, here I am today, was what I said. And you're like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up in Rockford, Illinois, which is a rough place, not great. Always top 10 most violent cities in America. It's 90 miles northwest of Chicago. Families from Sicily. Grandfather was a bookie. Nobody was really educated. My dad graduated high school, immediately started working at a factory, worked there for 37 years, never missed a sick day, kind of one of those blue collar dudes. And my mom didn't graduate high school, cleaned houses like that. I just came from a very humble blue collar family. Mm-hmm. Pretty wild upbringing, where, my brother had a heart transplant in 1990 when he was 9 years old. I was 7. And that was kind of the beginning of, like, all this turmoil in my family. He almost died. He was on his deathbed. I think my mom and dad were, going through it, obviously. My dad was drinking a lot, probably trying to deal with it. My mom, we were all, Italian Catholic. My mom converted to a Jehovah's Witness back then, probably grasping for something. And, that created turmoil within my family. And my brother was always sick. I was always staying at other people's houses, whether it was my grandparents, cousins, friends, whatever. And then, he was perpetually sick most of his childhood. And I was just kind of, I don't blame my parents for this at all. It's not a sob story, but I just kind of grew up independent and fast, where, like, I think the focus on my brother so much was just like, hey, we really got to take care of him. And
You felt you were just kind of like hanging out there on your own.
They were just like, well, Tony's strong enough. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, Tony's good. We don't got to worry about him. Maybe I did need to be worried about a little bit, but they didn't have the energy for that, which I totally get. And then, so growing up like that, very independent, and, just getting into the wrong, maybe crowd, I guess, growing up, to where, in high school, just like partying a little bit. And, one of my best friends at 17 years old ended up dying in my arms, bled to death in an accident. And that was kind of the trigger that, like, started my drug and alcohol addiction. So, like, through high school, like, I would have a beer here and there. I smoked a lot of weed, but until my friend died, like, I literally watched him bleed to death, like, cut his jugular vein and just, like, bled to death.
Fuck, dude.
And that was, like, really heavy for me. And there was nobody that, like, was, like, really checking on me or saying, like, maybe we should get him some help. Maybe you should talk about it. I was just silent about it and talk about it. And again, it was just kind of like, oh, Tony, you'll be fine. He's strong, whatever. He'll be all right. He'll figure this out on his own. But I really didn't. And I just started drinking really heavy. And that led into, cocaine and pills and all this stuff. So from 17 to 22, like I was just like getting worse and worse as the years go by, more drugs, more drinking. And then at 22 years old, I was at a bar and drunk, obviously. And a guy was kind of got into a little scuffle with a buddy of mine at this bar. And then nothing really happened. And then we were leaving, walking out in the parking lot, and they're still kind of arguing with each other. And I like have my buddy's arm. And I'm just like trying to pull him out of the situation. I'm like, let's go. Everybody's drunk. Who cares? Let's jump on our car, go home. And this guy like just wouldn't let it go. Finally, my buddy didn't want to fight. He just turned and started walking away. But now it's my buddy, me, and this guy. And I'm in the middle and I'm walking towards my car and he won't give it up. And he starts getting closer to me. So I finally turn around and I'm just like, let's all just go home. Like, what is going on here? And he's calling me all this and that. And then he like takes a swing at me. He's wasted drunk. So he misses by a mile and he missed. And I'm just standing there staring at him. And I'm like 5'9", 5'10", he's like 6'3". And he almost falls when he swings, and then he stands back up and he like puts his hand back like he's going to hit me again or swing at me again. So I punch him in the jaw, knock him out. He falls back and hits his head and he's just out cold, right? So that happens and I just turned and walk away. I wasn't like yelling. I wasn't mad. I wasn't anything. I start walking away and then his group of friends kind of run up and they're like, you just hit a cop. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, he's a police officer. And I was like,
well, yeah, I'm not psychic.
I was like, well, you could have said that an hour ago and this all would have been over.
Well, bro, I was a cop for a long time. I'm going to let you in a little secret. You can't go out and commit crimes and assault people because you're a cop.
Yeah.
So like that shouldn't have any bearing in the situation.
Yeah. It did at that moment for me.
Of course it did. Of course it did.
And, yeah, he was married. He was there with a girlfriend. I'm sure there was some reasons why they didn't, say, hey, I'm a cop. Like, everybody go home. So, so that happens. And I'm just like, well, I think I said, well, you could have said that earlier. I walk to my car. I get in it. I back up. I go to leave. And now there's like people surrounding him. He's still knocked out. And then I see cops coming already. And I was like, well, shit, this is a little more serious. I can't leave the scene. So I pull back in, park, get out, cops get out.
Are they homies of his?
No.
No, okay.
No, but I get out and they're like trying to figure out what happened. And I just like have my hands in the air and I'm just like, hey, I'm the one that punched him. This is what happened. He swung at me and I hit him. So they're like, all right. They don't even put cuffs on me or anything. They're just like asking me questions. And then they get an ambulance to come. And then at that point, they're like, one of them's like, just get in the back of my car. He's like, I'm not going to cuff you or anything. Let me just figure out what's going on. So I get in the back of the cop car. Later, I end up getting arrested for aggravated battery, go to jail. This was maybe like a Thursday night or something. I sit in jail till like Monday and I'm like, damn, why hasn't anybody came and got me? Like, what is going on here? Like, I'd been arrested a few times, right?
Yeah, like punching someone.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think you'd spend 3 or 4 days in jail.
I figured somebody would have bailed me out by then.
Yeah.
Everybody knew I went to jail. So I think it was like Monday morning, I used the phone. I call my dad, collect, and he answers.
I already know where this is going.
And I was
it's
like,
fucked.
I go, Dad, I'm in jail. Like, can somebody come get me? I go, I'm in jail, right? And he goes, yeah, no shit. And I was like, well, can somebody come get me? What's going on? And he's like, well, the guy you hit was an off-duty cop and he's in the hospital. They don't think he's going to survive. And then I was like, oh shit.
Fuck, dude.
And I was like sitting there in county and I'm like, oh God. So, so that happened. A couple of weeks go by. He starts doing better, right? And we have like a family lawyer that's coming to visit me and stuff and keep me up to date on everything. And he's like, all right, they think he's going to be okay. Like, we're going to bail you out. I was like, cool. And I was still just on a battery charge. So I get bailed out. And then maybe like less than a week later, the guy dies. So he was still in the hospital. They tried doing some surgery. He dies. And I'm at home eating dinner. and the new, like there's the local news is on, and all of a
And
sudden
that's where you found out?
my mug shot pops up. Yeah. Cop killer, blah, blah, blah. So that's when I found out he died.
Wow, dude.
So hire a more competent, criminal lawyer. And then, chatting with him, and he's like, well, he goes, here's what's going to happen. He's like, they should just keep it as aggravated battery or charge you with like manslaughter. Right. And he goes, there's a chance you'll get charged with first degree murder. He goes, but if you get charged with murder, he goes, I hate to say this, that'll be the best thing for you. Cause I'll get you,
You'll probably beat it in trial.
You'll beat it. And I was like, okay. So
yeah, I'm sure that was really, hey, the best thing they could do is charge you with murder. Yeah, my day is going great.
yeah.
Dude, for me, it's crazy because how many drunken fights have we all been in as kids?
A million.
You know what I'm saying?
That was probably my 50th.
And then that can happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
It's crazy. It's a horrible circumstance. So
what year was this?
This was 2005.
Okay.
So it was like, it was like right around Thanksgiving of 2005. So I'm bailed out. The guy passes away. I'm just awaiting something to happen, right? I'm going to work every day. I'm just like going through the motions, just like the most anxiety you could ever have, just waiting to get arrested, right?
Sick.
So I'm at work, and couple cops pull up one day, and I'm like, oh, here it is. And they place me under arrest. And I'm like, so they were on the way to jail. And I'm like, what am I being arrested on? And they say aggravated battery. And I'm like, well, I was already arrested for aggravated battery. And I was like so confused, right? And that's all they say. So I go back to jail, get booked, get in my tier. And, my lawyer I call my lawyer, or he comes and visits. I can't remember, but I'm like, what is going on? And he goes, well, they charged you with aggravated battery from a previous incident. So in my mugshot from the night I got in that fight, I have a black eye. The black eye was from a fight I got into a week earlier. So what the police did was they went out and just tried to get anything on me. They find this person I got in a fight with, and that person presses charges because the cops tell them to. So now I get charged with an aggravated battery charge that happened a week before this fight. Okay. So then my lawyer's like, he goes, well, that's probably good. They probably couldn't, get the jury, the grand jury to up your charge.
Yeah, for murder.
So he's like, this is probably a good thing. So I'm like, all right. So I'm in jail for a little bit, a week or two, get out. And then like after I get out, I think it was like 2 days later, I'm at work, like 9 cop cars pull up. And then that's when they arrest me on first degree murder and manslaughter. So within
could it be? I know every state is different.
This was Illinois.
So is the difference between does first degree murder have a premeditation aspect to it?
No, it's just the act is you have to do something that shows intent, right? So So the only reason they were able to, and we'll get into this, but the only reason they were able to charge me with first degree murder was saying I had a weapon, even though I didn't, obviously. But his injuries that caused his death was, he fell back and hit his head, the back of his head. The crack on his skull was in the front of his skull. So the state was trying to say I had something in my hand that cracked his skull.
Like brass knuckles or something.
Something, right?
Okay.
There was never a weapon found.
You're like, no, I just know how to punch.
Yeah, I was in a lot of fights back then. But like there was never a weapon found. Every single person that was there said I hit him in the jaw. There was a contusion on his jaw. Like everything led to I hit him in the jaw. Mm-hmm. He hit the back of his head on the concrete. What we later found out, because we had to hire an expert, I forget even his title, but he spoke at my trial, and he showed, because he studied car accidents where this happens, where somebody hits their head on a windshield or a steering wheel or something, And where the contusion isn't where the fracture happens. It's force, right? And wherever the force meets is where the fracture happens. So a lot of times when people have, blunt or what am I trying to say?
Blunt force trauma.
Blunt force trauma to their skull, the fracture doesn't happen where the trauma
it can happen
is
on the other side
because the energy meets somewhere, and where the energy meets is where it cracks, right? So when he fell back and hit his head, the energy met in the front of his skull, and that's where it cracked. So that was my defense, right? Like I didn't have a weapon. There was never a weapon found. All these things led to, I should have just been charged with manslaughter. But they charged me with murder. And then when I went to trial, the reason I was found not guilty was, now I'm facing first degree murder, which in Illinois is, life in prison, basically. It's 80 years, but it's a class X felony. So you serve every single day in Illinois. So you don't get off for a
it's a
good
life
time.
sentence.
I was 22. I would have got out when I was 102, or I'm sorry. By then I was 24 at my trial, but so 80 years for that. Manslaughter, I think, was like 3 to 11 years or something. And, aggravated battery, that's a felony as well. That's up to 5 years, I think. So when I went to my trial, it was a 2-week trial. All these experts came up for me, the defense, for the state, all the witnesses, everything. And, I was every day after my trial, I was going to my lawyer's office and we were doing a mock trial of me on the stand. And my lawyer said the whole time, he's like, if I think I have this one, he's like, I'm not putting you on the stand. He goes, if there's any doubt in my mind that we're not 100% going to win this, you're going to take the stand. So I want to practice every night so you're prepared.
But then the prosecution gets to examine you as well.
Yeah, they get to cross-examine me.
Okay.
That's why it's risky.
Yep.
Because you could either make it or break it for yourself.
Yeah, if you plead the fifth, you don't have to say anything. But if you take the stand, both sides get their questions.
Yep. Which I did not want to do, Hopefully we had it won. But the day before closing statements and everything, my lawyer's like, I don't think we have this one.
Oof.
He goes, he's like, I'm going to put you on the stand tomorrow. I'm 24 years old, dude. I've just been going. This is 2 years after I got arrested now.
And are you out on bail for the?
I'm out
murder
on
as
bail.
well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we step back a little bit, so I get arrested, a third time in a couple months for murder and manslaughter. Go back to jail. I'm in there for a little bit. My bond is $250,000.
Was it 10% of it you have to come up with?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my dad, God bless him, he's passed away now. He died like 9 years ago, but he my lawyer was like, it'd be so much better if Tony was out and showed that he was, going to work, being a good citizen, blah, blah, blah. It'll help him so much in his trial. So like weeks go by and, finally my lawyer's like, hey, I want this case. I want Tony to, I know he's not guilty. Like I want all this to happen. I usually charge this, but I'm not going to, this is more of a passion project for this guy. Dan Kane. He was like the best lawyer in back home in Rockford. This was like his last like really big trial. Right. And I think he just wanted to like go out with a bang and make a statement. And then he retired. He went to Florida. But he, didn't charge what he normally would. My dad was able to bail me out, and I just went back to work and just tried to live as normal of a life as I could up until my trial, which was at that point now about 1.5 years. I was out and then went to my trial.
Staying away from the bar scene, I see.
Yeah, I couldn't. I was on house arrest at that point, basically.
Yeah.
I was like on work release, but I had a curfew, everything. I couldn't leave the house.
You have an ankle monitor?
Didn't have a monitor, thank God, but
I saw that they put one of those on Liver King yesterday.
Did they? God, that mugshot of that dude. I saw that mugshot yesterday. I was like, this guy, what has happened to him? So I basically went to work, didn't drink, didn't do drugs, didn't do anything. Basically had to just work and come home. I had a probation officer, Jody Campbell, who ended up taking the stand and didn't say anything but good things about me, and and she was an angel in all this too. But, you know, I tried to be a good citizen for a year and a half, and then went to my trial. And like I was saying, the day before I was going to take the stand, my lawyer's like, all right, we got to go back to my office. We're going to practice one more time. Tomorrow you'll take the stand. So I go back to his office, I sit down, and I am so drained at this point, you know, just emotionally everything. And I remember,
I can only imagine, man.
Yeah, I remember sitting in his office and I couldn't even think, you know, and his partner was to the left of me, and they were going to do this trial, you know, this fake trial basically, where they were going to cross-examine me again. And I remember he, you know, right when I sat down and like they asked the first question, I just like got up and I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, I can't practice it. I'm just gonna go up there and tell the truth. I'm not doing this. I'm going home and getting some sleep. And his partner was like, you're doing this. You got to be prepared. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm like, I can't. I'm drained. I'm done. I'm going to get up on the stand and tell the truth.
Well, and it's also kind of like what we just talked about a few minutes ago. Is like, if you're standing in truth, you don't have to practice it.
I didn't have to practice anything. I knew exactly what I was going to say. So she's giving me a bunch of pushback, and I just remember Dan looking at me across the table. He's just like staring at me, and he just looks at his partner and he goes, he's got it. He's like, go home. So I went home, and then the next day I took the stand, and I was cross-examined for like 3 hours, I think.
Oh, man.
And I just told the truth, you know, and it was, to be honest, and I'll compare this to something as well, something that you said earlier. Once I got on, I think it was all this anxiety and just like watching people talk about me for 2 weeks that didn't even know me. And even during the jury selection process.
Well, I was going to ask you about jury selection because most people don't know. It's not a jury of your peers. It's a jury that is strategically chosen through this really intricate battle that the lawyers play with each other.
Yeah, they can veto certain jurors. Jurors can veto themselves basically by saying the wrong thing, and the judge is just like, yeah, this person's not going to work, right? So yeah, it is very strategic. And dude, there was a couple jurors that went up there, and one of the guys said I deserved the death penalty. Like, that was.
And did he get selected?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's somebody that the judge threw out, right? Because they don't want anybody with any bias up there. So if a jury's saying something that's extremely biased, the judge will just say no.
So that's the little pro tip. If you get jury duty, go up there and say some outrageous shit, and they'll let you go.
Dude, you know what's funny? I've never responded to a jury's letter or anything. Like, I just don't. I ignore it like it never happened. I've never gone to one.
You got another arrest pending now.
Yeah, I got a bench warrant. But yeah, so like the jury selection was wild, dude. And there was like online on the local newspaper, there was like an online forum because they kept putting articles out about me. And dude, people in these forums were just like ripping me apart. And I'm like, man, you don't even know the story. You don't even know who I am.
Bro, that's the society we live in now. It
was wild. And then
was that, I'm sure as a young man, that was probably eating you up. Yeah. Or were you able to
I couldn't say anything. So yeah, it was frustrating, you know, and it all accumulated to the moment I was on the stand. And dude, I was reading all these police reports. Like, they went to the gym I worked out at. They interviewed everybody that knew me. Right. And there was this one dude who I knew from the gym and playing football in high school. He was 2 years ahead of me. He was in my brother's grade, actually. Never had a problem with this guy. Knew him kind of surface level, you know, always said hi to him.
He was talking mad shit.
Dude, he made up. Dude, I swear to God, I read this police report.
You probably fucked his girlfriend or something. You never even knew it.
Yeah, maybe. He had a problem with me for some reason. But dude, I read this police report he wrote, and he was saying I was using steroids, selling steroids, extremely violent in the gym. I had never even seen a steroid, first of all. I'd never sold a steroid. I didn't know anything about them.
And what are you doing that's violent in the gym?
In the gym? Like, he made up this long story, and I'm like, what the? Like, this is my life you're messing with, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you're lying. Like, it blew my mind how evil or narcissistic or whatever somebody could be. And it happened on the stand or during the trial too. They had this guy come in, which actually made the state look like a bunch of idiots. They had this guy come in who was like a bystander, And right when he took the stand, you could tell this guy was a freaking idiot.
Meaning he saw the incident that
He
night?
saw the incident.
Okay.
He was there. He was like at the bar. But he said he was the only person that said this, which I can't believe the state even put him up there. But this is how they were grasping.
So
right?
it actually worked in your favor.
It
then,
did,
huh?
but it was so wild. But he said, I got in my car. He said, I peeled out of the parking spot, jumped over a curb into the grass where I almost hit a group of women that he had to push out of the way and save. And then I sped off. Like that was his story, which like absolutely was completely fabricated. And nobody, not even on, the state side, nobody said that happened. Every single person was like, yeah, he got in his car, calmly pulled out, got to the street, saw the cops, pulled back in, got out, put his hands up. Like this guy made up this story just to be a part of, like, how gross is that?
Well, 2005 was like the last era where there wasn't cameras on every corner.
Yeah,
So
there
I'm
was no
assuming
cameras.
there's nothing then, huh? So, dude, well, it's like the game of fucking telephone, man.
Oh.
Like people will intentionally lie about shit, but also just part of the human condition. It's like people cannot retain information very well.
And like, I think for this, 100% true. I think for this guy, he just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Which is like the opposite of what I would want to
Well,
do.
think about though, like if the narrative that's going out on the nightly news is that you're a cop killer, right? In some people's brains, it's like, well, I'm going to embellish the story over here to get that guy convicted.
Yeah. Which is sick. And even the state's attorney, dude, Margie, she was just pure evil. It's like she knew all the facts. She knew all the facts, and she still was trying to get me to spend the rest of my life in prison. She knew I didn't have a weapon.
They are there to win. They're there for stats, man. And like, it's funny because I've been on the other side of it. I was a cop. I worked with the prosecution very often. And I saw things that even made me be like, wait, what the fuck, dude? You're trying to send that guy to prison for 30 years?
Yeah.
I remember one time there's a big federal case in LA, and it was so convoluted. I told the prosecutor, I said, this guy's going to walk. Your case is a fucking mess, dude.
Yeah.
And she goes, I'll bet you $50 he doesn't walk. And I shook her hand. And when he got found not guilty, she paid me $50. And I was like, dude, I don't know how this would be received that we're gambling on,
gambling on a life,
on the
right?
outcome of these cases.
Yeah.
But my point in it is that it's lawyers have a win-loss ratio or percentage, and that's all they care about. Mm-hmm. Because if they can show on paper that they fucking slay and they always win, that's what they want.
Right.
I doubt you've ever seen an attorney that's like on prosecution that reviewed the evidence with more scrutiny and then was like, actually, I don't think this is who this guy is.
Yeah.
Maybe we should lessen the charges, or maybe we should think about just extinguishing the case altogether. Once they take it, they're out for blood, and then it's just a game at that point.
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck that Tony's going to lose the rest of his life.
Yeah, which is so sick.
It's weird, man.
Yeah, very weird. And I guess it's up to the judge to decide. And, you get to veto a judge too. Like if we get appointed a judge, I think there's like 6 or something. If we get appointed a judge that we don't like, you can do one veto and get another one, right?
Okay.
So we were hoping for like this one judge back home, right? And we did not get him.
Which that in itself is kind of bizarre. And I get it, man.
The whole system.
I was just going to say, at the end of the day, it comes down to humans, and humans are flawed. So there is no system that's going to work perfectly. But I remember and I was downtown Los Angeles at the federal courts when I was working down there as a deputy. We had a judge named Judge Rial, and we had another judge named Judge Kronstad. And they were known for being politically opposite ends of the spectrum. Judge Rial, you were going to get fucking life in jail. Judge Kronstad, he's going to give you time served and try and get you rehabilitated.
Yeah.
Now, regardless of your opinions on either of those men or how they adjudicate cases, it's crazy that a 24-year-old kid can just get randomly selected, and based on whose courtroom he ends up in, his whole life could change.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre.
Dude, even, even a year in prison would change you forever. Like, I didn't spend that much time in county. I'd been to county a lot. But, like, dude, being in there, you're going to go one way or the other. And, God, there was guys I was locked up with that were on their third strike, stealing a stereo out of a car with a screwdriver, went to stab the person that found him stealing the stereo and did a plea at 15 years in prison for that. Just like the craziest stories. And like these guys are just institutionalized at that point. And I just remember being in there looking at all these guys. I'm like, dude, this is not me. This is not what I want to do. It happened the first day I was in there, actually. Because like when I got booked, obviously the COs in there knew I was in there for, getting in a fight with a cop. That's all they knew. So they give me a yellow jumpsuit, which is like,
protected,
high risk.
Okay.
Violent, high risk. I'm in the tier with all the other, class 4 and X felons, and they give me a jumpsuit that's like a small. So I can't even get it over my shoulders. So I'm walking around.
Did it make you look jacked though?
I mean, remember I'm 24. I wasn't as big as I am now. I did have a lot of these stupid tattoos. So I blended.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't even get the jumpsuit. I had it tied around my waist. I'm walking around with no shirt on. I'm like looking at myself. I got, bad tattoos and I'm looking at everybody else in there and I'm like, God, this is not how I want to live my life.
Well, and it seems like it's only a matter of time before you would find more conflict in there.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you hear that story all the time. Guys are sizing you up. They want to test you. Like all the weird hierarchy that's always being established in prison.
There's a fight every single day. And I was at the very last tier of county against the wall because they segregate everybody in there by race and gang affiliations. So like you walk in, it's like the first 2 tiers are all African American, 2 different gangs. And then after that, it's Hispanic, 2 different gangs in each tier. And then it's white, gang affiliated. And then mine, I had no gang affiliation. So it was a mix of white and Hispanic non-gang members. But it was all, class, 4 or X felons. So there were some violent people in there and there was a fight every single day, at least one. And we were the very last tier. So like if the COs are down here, they have to walk all the way down the hall, which they make a slow walk when there's a fight. They let it kind of happen.
Yeah, let it play out a little bit.
And dude, it could take, 2-3 minutes before anybody, gets there.
Which in a fight, that's an eternity.
Yeah, it can get nasty. And then, nobody in jail is going to break it up. It's just going to happen how it happens, So it's not a great place to be.
So, but when you were arrested for the murder 1 charge until you got bail, was that your longest stint of actually being in custody?
None of them were super long. I would say they were all less than a month.
Okay.
So I was probably in there a total, I don't even know, like no more than 3 months or something total.
3 months is a decent amount of time though.
And like before that, I mean, I had been to county a few times, for peddly stuff. So like I knew people in there, like people I grew up with, or like, it's Rockford's kind of a small townish, but yeah, it's just a horrible place. And this jail was built in the 1800s. Like
so it's haunted on top of everything.
My
else.
cell was against the outside wall. I was on the top bunk and it was cold outside. Like by the time I was arrested for murder, it was probably end of December. And like my entire wall and ceiling would get frost on it and just drip on me all night. It was freezing in there, and they just give you like this,
wool blanket or something.
I had no socks, nothing. It sucks. 1 shower for 70 people.
A shirt that wouldn't even fit.
Yeah. 1 shower for 70 people. I mean, it's a just horrible, horrible place. Like nothing worse than jail or prison.
So when they had you on the stand for 3 hours, Did they have any, they thought like, I got you moments?
Yeah. So what I was going to say about that was like all this anxiety, like leading up to it. Right. I was like so focused on one thing for so long. Like people like ask me a lot, like, how'd you get through all that? I'm like, to be honest, like I was so focused on it. Like I had my bad days, but like all the anxiety and stuff happened after my trial, like where I really just went into a dark hole of depression. But like leading up to it, it's like watching all these people talk about me and all this stuff. And I had picked, appointed to me was Judge McGraw, who we didn't want to veto because we could have vetoed and gotten a really horrible judge. There was a couple of judges that were way worse than him, but he was a very, very, very fair judge, like extremely fair. And the only caveat with Judge McGraw was he's so fair that when you get found guilty, he gives you the max. So every single time.
I didn't know that's an element of fair.
Yeah.
but are you saying he just goes in alignment with what the jury decides?
Exactly. Basically? Yeah. Because he's so fair during the trial that if the jury does decide that you're guilty, he's like, hey, this was the most fair trial. Like, and the jury still found you guilty. You're getting the max.
Okay.
Fair, even meaning more lenient towards the defendant, being as fair as he can for the defendant. So if he's giving you that gift and the jury still finds you guilty, then you're getting the max, right?
Okay.
But that's a risk we're willing to take because we wanted a fair trial. So I take the stand and I'm nervous about it or whatever. I get up there, and right when I'm up there, I mean, all the anxiety goes away. I felt so comfortable finally being able to talk after almost 2 years of not being able to say anything, and just all these people and all these stories and all this stuff, people talking about me like I wasn't even a human.
Yeah.
And now I get to take the stand and actually tell my side of the story, the truth, exactly what happened that night. And it was a relief, to be honest. Yeah. I felt so comfortable up there. So, my lawyers asked me questions. I get cross-examined, and, the very last thing she said, the state's attorney, was, did you do anything wrong that night? And I said, absolutely. And I was like, if I could go back in time, I would have never hit him. Like, that's what I said. And she was like, exactly. And she like thought that was like the nail in the coffin. Right. I was just being honest.
Yeah.
Like, of course, like, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
No, I didn't do it.
I'm really happy how it worked out.
And the jury just saw all this BS through these, weeks leading up to it. And the reason I was found not guilty on all charges, not just the murder charge, and why they probably should have just charged me with either aggravated battery or manslaughter, was I was so grossly overcharged with first-degree murder that my defense was self-defense. He did swing at me, and I swung back, we defense rests, everything happens. I go across the street to a bar. I don't drink or anything, but my family's there. We're waiting for the jury to deliberate. Yep. Right.
How long was deliberation?
I think it was about 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
They called me back one time after a couple hours, asked some questions. Yep. I went back, and then like 3 hours later, they said they reached a verdict.
Fuck, dude. Like, I can't even imagine what that feels like.
At this point in my life, it's, almost 20 years ago that verdict happened now. And if I'm so different now, my life is so different, everything's so different. It feels like a different person almost.
Yeah, it was, bro.
And when I look back at my life, like my life from zero to the minute till I was 25, when I finally moved away from all that and moved out to California, like I feel like this just darkness in my life from 0 to 25 where I don't even think about it. I don't know if it's like a defense mechanism of how crazy my life was, all the trauma I went through. There was so much stuff I went through till I finally just like restarted my life at 25. Like I look at my life as starting at 25.
Yeah.
I don't look at any of that anymore. And I've maybe compartmentalized it as like, it's not even the same person. So like, even when I talk about it or think about it now, it's easy for me to talk about because I feel like I'm just telling somebody else's story.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I walk back to the courtroom, and, the jury had reached a verdict. Sitting there with my lawyer, judge walks in, we stand up, jury walks in, and one of the jurors looked at me, right, which is a good sign. And so the jury, is standing there, and the judge says, and I'm standing, and the judge says, have you reached verdict? Yes. And then they hand the bailiff the verdict, right? And in the old movies, like, they would hand the bailiff the verdict, the judge would look at it, hand it back, and the head juror would read the verdict. So in my mind, I'm thinking that's what's going to happen. And, the head juror hands the bailiff the verdict. They hand it to Judge McGraw, and he just grabs it, and in 3 seconds, he reads the verdict.
Yeah.
State versus Anthony Montalbano on the charges of first-degree murder, not guilty, manslaughter, not guilty, aggravated battery, not guilty, case adjourned, boom, and got up and left.
Dude, I feel that. Man.
And I was just
What was the emotion like in that moment? Do you remember?
I broke down.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Dude.
And I just embraced my attorney.
Yeah.
And I just cried on his shoulder. And he just held me. And the everybody in the courtroom was like his, the victim side of the room was all up in arms and screaming, and they were trying to calm them down. And my family and my side was just embracing each other. And I just remember hugging my lawyer, and then, he kind of looked at me and he's like, stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
And that's all he said. And I was,
well, dude, here's the weird part. I'm like, I get if that was your little brother or that was your cousin and he got killed, I can understand having some anger around it. But the other side of the coin is, bro, if you're out there getting drunk and fighting people, that's a byproduct of that. And even though it could be tragic and you could be sad, to pin it on you when he's the one that's out drunk trying to fight people, that's not going to make the situation any better.
Yeah. I think, my lawyer said it best too, in an interview after my trial, he said, nobody won here.
Yeah.
He's like, we didn't win. He's like, somebody's dead.
Yeah.
He's like, Tony's life is basically ruined.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, he can't live here anymore. They've ran him through the mud. What's he going to do now? He's 24 years old.
Yeah.
He's like, nobody wins here. It's a tragic situation. And we feel bad for, Mr. Ritter's family. We feel bad for Tony and that. He's like, it's a horrible situation. And I think that's true. Nobody really won.
So obviously you're related with the decision. You said you broke down, but there was depression that followed that. Oh, God.
Yeah. And what I was going to say about taking the stand and feeling just so comfortable up there. It's kind of like what you were talking about, giving a speech or doing public speaking. I feel the same way with that. When I first started public speaking, the first time I was on stage was 400 or 500 people, and talk about anxiety leading up to that. It was kind of the same feeling.
Yeah.
Where I was sweating, and I was like, shit, and I was over prepared, which gave me anxiety because I'm just like you, or I'm I just need to wing it. And I got up on stage, and the minute I got on stage that time, it all just slowed down. And I felt like I was in my living room. And that's when I decided, I'm never preparing for a speech ever again. And I do the same thing. I speak a lot.
I love that we came to the same conclusion.
But it reminded me of that. But yeah, so then I get found, not guilty. I go home. Here's how I know the media is full of shit too, is I go home that night. Somebody had given, somebody on the news my phone number. So as I'm at my dad's house, we have some friends over and stuff. Phone rings, I answer it. And it's some news lady trying to ask me questions. And I was like, I don't really have any comments. I'm just spending time with my family, but thank you. And I just hang up. And then on the news later that night, she's like, I just got off the phone with Anthony Montalbano, and he said justice was served. And I'm like, I didn't say that. This fucking news is fake.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, dude, almost instantly, I fell into a deep depression. So I felt good that night. I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Literally the next day, I remember just sitting in my dad's house, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I had what I know now is probably post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And I started getting like uncontrollable anxiety just sitting there. And this was the next day.
Wow.
And I couldn't even like function basically. And I started drinking again to medicate that. And slowly the drinking got worse and worse to the point where I had basically an intervention where I was living by myself. It had gotten so bad I couldn't leave my house. I had taken black paint and painted all my windows black so no sun would come through. Because just knowing it was daylight would give me crippling anxiety where I would just like want to hide in my closet.
Do you feel like your nervous system was just like in fight or flight for so long during the arrest, the incarceration, the trial, that when it finally came to conclusion, your nervous system just gave out on you?
Gave out. Yeah, I explain it like, I was so focused on that one thing. I was fighting for my life. And then the minute that was over, all that 2 years of energy and focus was gone. And it just like that energy has to go somewhere. And it felt like a washing machine in my head.
Which is crazy because you would think like a favorable verdict would be like,
not at all.
Only for 24 hours was kind of like, felt the weight come off. Yeah. And then the next day it was back, huh?
It was back, dude, like with a vengeance. And I was drinking to black out every night.
Did you ever find yourself
on drugs?
Oh, fuck.
During that time too. Had taken tons of pills. I was like getting highly addicted to Vicodin, doing cocaine again, drinking till I blacked out, taking 20, 30 Vicodin a day. And then one day I thought it'd be a good idea after doing that all day to take a handful of Xanax, which I think is like a recipe for killing yourself.
Were you think subconsciously suicidal at that point?
I don't know if I'll say I was suicidal. I definitely was A-okay with dying.
Just zero fucks.
Zero. If an asteroid was coming towards the earth, I would have been fine with it. Mm-hmm. I was emotionless about it, about death, about life, everything. And it took a few months, and I was locked in my house, painted my windows black, couldn't leave. I was an electrician at the time. My foreman, my dad, one of my best friends, came to my apartment, found me in my condition because I hadn't been answering the phone, and basically like picked me up and said, "Hey, you're moving in with your buddy Cal, and you can't live by yourself anymore." So I moved in with my buddy. I was still on probation for that other aggravated battery charge from that other fight. Mm-hmm. So I still couldn't leave the state.
Oh, okay.
So I was stuck still.
So the charges were still pending then on that one?
On that one, I had a pending felony battery charge. So I still couldn't leave. So I was like, fuck. So I'm still stuck in Illinois, and I move in with Cal. I'm slowly trying to go back to work. I go see my doctor, and I'm like, this is not sustainable. I can't live like this. And he's like, I know you're not going to take any medication because every time I prescribe you something, you don't take it. He's like, and he just like fleetingly goes, you need something else to worry about, dude. He goes, why don't you get a dog or something? Like that was what he said. The next day I was driving home from a job site, just happened to drive past the pound, stopped in and got my dog Tank. He was like 3 months old. He was a mutt on the kill list, a little pit bull guy. Uh-huh. And got that dog, and that was like the beginning of my healing.
Wow.
Like I started like taking care of him and worrying about him, and like it gave me something to like a purpose. Yeah. Like we always talk about purpose. Yep. It's like that. I had no purpose after my trial until I got Tank. And he lived for 13 years. He died like 4 years ago. But dude, and you talk about like a soulmate in a pet, like couldn't have been a better dog for me.
Dude,
like,
I love that.
It was, it was the best thing for me.
Bro, he's my first soulmate dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I know what you're talking about now. Yeah. I've had great dogs, but he was a rescue too. And rehoming Malinois at a rescue is like, it's a tough, and I feel that. Mm-hmm. That's really cool, man. And then, so, I mean, if he passed 3 years or 4 years ago, he got to be part of your whole journey into who you became.
Yeah. So I got Tank, and I think it was about, maybe 6 months later after that, it was almost exactly 6 months later after I got him, is when I pled no contest to that other aggravated battery. Actually, we got it pushed down to a misdemeanor battery, so I wouldn't have a felony. And I pled no contest to it to be over with it, so they wouldn't drag me through another trial. And I moved to California with Tank. He was like, almost a year old at that time. And then he lived in San Diego with me till the day he died.
Okay. So that's where you moved to then, San Diego.
Yeah, I moved to San Diego.
What made you choose San Diego from the whole country? Other than it's fucking beautiful and awesome.
Yeah, dude. I just remember looking at a map one day it was during my trial actually. And I was daydreaming. I'm like, man, if I get out of this, what am I going to do? And I looked at a map and I was like, what's the furthest place from where I'm at right now?
Oh, wow.
And it was San Diego. And that was the only reason I decided there. I knew nothing about it. Didn't have anybody there. No, nothing, no opportunity, anything. And I was just like, I need to get as far away from this place as possible.
Get me the fuck out of here.
And that's what I did. I packed up my truck. Me and Tank drove out to San Diego, had $3,500 in my bank account. This was 2008. All I knew was construction. The housing market had just crashed, because my arrest happened in 2005. Trial was 2007. I moved in 2008. Housing market had just crashed. Had no opportunity out there. Drove all the way out to San Diego. Got a little apartment by the beach, and I was like, I'll just figure it out.
Were you in a good headspace by this time?
I was getting to the point where I was getting a lot better, like exponentially.
Yep.
It took me about, I would say, a year to start feeling normal again, but I was well on my way.
Okay.
And I get out to San Diego and I wake up the first day in this empty apartment with a used mattress, no sheets. And I remember waking up and feeling like I just conquered the world.
Well, there's just no frost on the walls.
Yeah.
Probably had a shirt that fit. Right?
Yeah. But just like moving across the country, dude.
You did it.
And I remember just like waking up thinking like, I want to do this every day. Like I want to move every day. Like I just want like a new beginning. Like I just felt so accomplished and so good. It was like, I had all these like endorphins, and I remember getting up and I wrote down, you're one step away from greatness. And like, that was like the moment for me where I was like, all right, if that's true, then just keep taking steps every day to get there. And that's what I started doing. And, got off the drugs, stopped drinking and partying and trying to, self-medicate, really started focusing on my fitness again, which I started at 15, but got, it wasn't as consistent as I should have been because of drugs and all the bullshit. So I got back into fitness and, tried getting a job, couldn't. I was working nights I got a job through a temp agency, working nights at a food for less grocery store, stocking shelves, making $13 an hour. I think I started at midnight, got off at like 5 or 6 in the morning. And that was like paying me enough to eat. And I was like, I need to supplement this. So I responded to a Craigslist gig ad that was build 10 beach cruiser bicycles every morning for this new bicycle shop in Pacific Beach, and I'll give you $100 cash. And I was like, well, shit, I can get off my night job, go there, build 10 bikes, make an extra $100 a day. Like,
how long's 10 bikes take?
Like for me, it would probably take now, like, less than 3 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. So I get off work. I go to this bike shop for this like open interview, and the bike shop is literally the size of this room we're in now, a couple hundred square feet. It was, but it was right on the main strip. This guy had a computer and a way to check out and just a bunch of boxes of bikes. And he was starting this bicycle shop, right? Like as a side hustle kind of thing. Cause he had this empty room on this main drag there on Garnett. And I'm there at like 7 in the morning. He said, everybody get there at 9 for open interviews. I'm there at 7. I was the first person there. I'm like, dude, I need this job. I just got here from Chicago. I'm working nights. I can do this right after work. Before you even get here, I'll have all the bikes built. He's like, all right. He's like, well, I got a bunch of people coming in today. I'll let you know. I call him like every 2 hours all day long. I think the third time I call him, he's like, are you the dude that showed up real early? I was like, yeah. He goes, just come in tomorrow.
Like, you're annoying me. You got the job.
So I go in the next day. I build these bikes. I get there the day after that to build more. And he had sold all 10 bikes I built the day before. And he's like, dude, I sold all those. So I build 10 more. again, sells them all. Do it again. He sells. So by the end of the week, he's like, dude, how much are you making at your other job? He's like, and then I tell him, and he goes, dude, I'll pay you $200 a day just to work full time. Like, I need you. I was like, cool. So I start, working from him $200 a day for the rest of that summer. We crank, we sell thousands of bikes, this little tiny shop. We get to the winter time, and he's like, he takes all the money he made from the shop and he goes and buys, a house in Poway, California that needs a bunch of work, right? Drains his account, puts his down payment on this house. It needs a ton of rehab. So we come up with a plan where he's like, hey, I don't have any money to pay you over the next 3 months. He goes, help me rehab this place top to bottom, and I'll give you equity in the shop. And I was like, done. So I worked for 3 months for free, rebuilding this house, electrical, framing, everything, right? Mm-hmm. Get this house rehabbed. And then now the next year, I'm getting a percentage at the shop. Do that for a few more years, open my own bicycle shop by San Diego State. A year goes by, make money doing that. Yelp comes out. It's a brand new app. The restaurant I shared a wall with at that strip mall where my bike shop was by the college is the #1 reviewed restaurant on Yelp in the nation.
Oh, shit.
They get a line.
So it starts bringing people in.
Well, this is what happens. They have a line around the block.
Well, I hate to admit this live on the air, but if you do enough time in a podcast studio, you have some technical difficulties. So the recording just went out right after you said that you got picked up by the bike shop.
Yep.
You ended up building, he said, I'll pay you, what, $200 a day to work full time?
$200 a day. And thank God it went out because we said a bunch of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, that happened to me a couple weeks ago where I was having such a good conversation with somebody and all of a sudden everything went out. And I was like, how long did that happen?
Dude, thank God it was only 5 minutes.
Oh, thank God.
Because the podcast's been going on 4 years. This has happened 2 other times.
Yeah.
One was a power surge.
Oh.
And then one was a SD card fuck up where I thought I had more time. But dude, I even said before we started recording, I was like, that says I have 7 hours.
Yeah.
And we did an hour and a half, and then it said the card's filled up. Huh. So that was bizarre.
I don't know. All good. It was a fluke.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get Scott hires me, pays me $200 a day for that summer. And then he ends up, so he makes a bunch of money that summer. We're like hit the ground running with this bicycle shop, right? Mm-hmm. And we were buying bikes from warehouses in LA. We had a box truck. We'd drive, 80 bikes we could fit in there. We'd drive up to LA a few times a week, bring them down to the shop. I'd build them. He'd sell them. And then, after that summer, it slows way down. Like, people don't know that San Diego is seasonal. Like, It does get a little chilly at the beach in the winter time. So like sales slowed down in the winter, and he ends up buying this house that needed to be rehabbed a ton. And so he gets this house and he goes, hey, I just put all my money into the down payment on this house. The credit cards I have left need to go to materials to rehab it so I can move my, wife and soon to be son into this thing. I don't have any money to pay you, but if you take the next 3 months, help me, rehab this house, I'll give you equity in the shop.
Is that typically like the slow season then?
It's typically the slow season. So we ended up just shutting the shop down for 3 months so we could get this project done. Because it's going to be slow anyway. We'll pick up where we left off in the spring. So we end up shutting the shop down because it's just me and him at this shop. We shut it down for 3 months. I help him rehab this house top to bottom. Don't get paid. Just kind of live off whatever, some money and credit cards I got. And then after that, I get equity into the shop, and I do that for a few years. I'm making good money. Like 3 years go by, and then I open my own shop by San Diego State. And this is in a strip mall, and there right next to me that shared a wall with me was a falafel restaurant. And this is now like, so if I moved out there, so this was like 2012, 13, something like that, probably 2012. And Yelp was a brand new app. And this falafel restaurant that shared a wall with me in this strip mall ended up being the #1 reviewed restaurant on Yelp, like nationwide. So they get a line around the block. Like a week after that, they're freaking out because it was just this like good little restaurant by San Diego State. They can't believe what happened. They just hit the lottery, but they wanted to expand. So they come to me and they say, hey, we want to expand. What's going to cost to buy you out of your lease? The lease was a 5-year lease with a 5-year option. And I've only been in there a year, but they're losing money by not being able to seat all these people. People are, walking away. So they end up paying me like $50,000 for the lease.
You're fucking rich, bro.
So like, I'm like, damn. So like, this is now, 5 years after my trial.
Yeah.
So like things have changed a lot. And I take this money, I go to, Scott, who had hired me to begin with. And we're like, well, what's the next step? And we come up with the idea to go to China and start touring these factories that make these bikes, right? Because right now we're paying $109 a bike and selling them for like $200, but we're buying them wholesale. Why not go straight to the source, right?
Yeah.
So we end up going to China. We go to all these factories. We're in Shanghai, Guangzhou. We go to the Canton Fair. We tour factories. We find a factory we want to work with, and we put $90,000 together, and we import some containers of bicycles. So these get to San Diego, and we're like so excited. And I remember we open up the first box and build the first bike, and the coaster brake doesn't work. And I'm like, shit, our life savings are wrapped up into this inventory. So I ended up fixing all these bikes. All of them were defective. I fixed them all, found a quick, easy way to do it. So it wasn't that bad, but we don't make really any money off of these bikes. We kind of sell them for, cost or a little bit more, get our money back. And then we just keep ordering and quality controlling all the parts on these bikes until they're dialed in. Once they were dialed in, now we're like, all right, we want to wholesale these and distribute them. So we have a warehouse in San Diego and Miramar. And I end up, taking these bikes, and now I'm just a traveling sales dude. And I just drive up and down the coast, go to every single bike shop, out to, Scottsdale and Phoenix, like all over the place selling these beach cruisers. We end up getting like really good customers. There's a few shops that are ordering a lot of bikes from us. Our biggest customer was actually in Gilbert, Arizona. And so we're distributing.
That's where my mom lives.
Really? In Gilbert? Yeah.
Or Sun Lakes. Is that right by there, I think?
Sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm in Cave Creek up north.
Okay.
So I'm doing all the distribution. And then we decide to open a big retail shop by the beach. So we open up the retail shop, we got distribution, and like everything's going really good. We're buying these bikes for like $40, and now the quality's good enough. We're selling them for $250, eventually $300, and then $350. So we're making huge margins on these things. And, at the height, we were selling 5,000 beach cruisers a year.
Wow.
At like huge profit. So we're like, things are going really good. Bird scooters, Lime scooters, Lyft scooters, all the rideshare bikes show up one day, and it cuts our rental fleet by 90%. Nobody was renting bikes anymore when they could just use an app for $1 and hop on a scooter or a city bike, right?
What those people don't know, though, is that they're probably covered in staph infections and everything else that the meth community puts on them.
It's so gross. It's funny because like Ocean Beach, California is supposed to be like this hippy dippy, like, free love, area. But they're so anti everything, or they were back then. Now they probably do everything the government tells them after COVID.
Yeah.
But back then it was like anti-establishment, corporation, and all this stuff. And they were throwing these scooters into the ocean, which have lithium-ion batteries. Are you really hippies, or are you just idiots? Yeah. So back then, like that literally cut our sales in half and cut our rental income by 90%, literally 90%, like overnight. And they put almost every bicycle shop out of business, like all the mom and pop shops for sure. Some of the specialized bikes, mountain bike, high-end road bikes, obviously not, but lifestyle bikes, beach cruisers, stuff by the beach, like casual stuff was all, everybody was going out of business. And they were all trying to fight these big corporations. All these mom and pop shops were like against these corporations. They were cutting brake lines and popping tires on these things.
There's fucking bicycle wars.
It was bike wars. It was crazy what was going on. They were on the news and everything. And Bird sends out a mass email to all the bicycle shops. And they're like, we need help fixing these things, right? Because they didn't have a plan for maintenance on them.
Oh, okay.
So we were the only shop in San Diego that responded to them. And we're like, we will help you fix them. We have a warehouse with plenty of room. We have workstations there, all this stuff. And they're like, all right, can we come tour the facility and see if you guys can handle the amount of maintenance we need? So for like the next 2 days, we build all these workbenches. We just grab random homeless people, anything we can to make it look like.
Yeah, look at our state-of-the-art factory.
We make it look like we have like a maintenance warehouse, right? So they come.
Dude, they fucked you guys over. You got to play the game
dude,
too,
I
right?
swear to God, we were hiring, or not, just like staging street people in here. But we
were like, hey, I'll give you $100.
Yeah.
You come and sit here for the
Oh
day.
God, dude, I will say this, like Scott Crampton, who was my business partner out in San Diego for a long time, like this dude was wild. And like with two people that have crazy thoughts and execute on them, like we got a lot of shit done together.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, I was thinking on that because you said you just responded to a Craigslist ad,
Yeah.
right? And you're working all night and you're like, I think I could put a couple extra bucks in my pocket putting bikes together. It really changed the trajectory of your whole life.
It was there. That was like, I think about that moment because I remember calling him the third time. I was in my old, 98 Chevy driving in San Diego, and I was in Mission Valley. I was on the 8, and I just remember like calling him the third time. And I remember like thinking, am I annoying this dude? Should I even call him again? Or should I just say fuck him for not hiring me and just go get another job? And I just remember making that call, and it's that split second decision. Like if I didn't do that, what
what would have happened?
Would I be here right now? I don't know. It's so weird how that happens. But we talk about getting lucky. It's like, dude, the more risk you take, the more opportunities you take, the more you fail, the more lucky you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't get lucky sitting on the couch.
Yep. That's why I say all the time, like you have to walk through every door that opens up, and 99 of those doors may not benefit your life in one single fucking way. But the 100th door is the one that's going to change everything.
Everything.
And if you didn't walk through those first 99, you wouldn't be in the habit of putting yourself out there, trying new things, seeing what happens. And
Yeah.
so it's like, fuck, dude, you called this guy 3 times, and then you ended up building this giant company with him.
Yeah, and it was amazing. It was such a good run, man. Like just from, getting out of my trouble and moving across the country. And then from, I ran that business from 25 to 38, and ended up selling it. It was a perfect era of my life. I'm so glad I lived in San Diego in that moment and had that life. It was perfect.
So when you staged that, you had a bunch of repair guys and whatnot. They bought it, huh?
They bought it, and God, I just remember that moment. It was so funny because we literally just went to Home Depot, got all this lumber, and built all these workbenches, and just had all these like toothless fucking street people in it. It was insane. So, they start bringing us all these scooters to fix. A lot of flat tires, brake repairs, brake cables, stuff like that. It's all the same as a bike. So it was right up our alley.
Yeah.
And we hire 3 or 4 people to fix these things. They're bringing us 20, 30, 40 of these scooters a day to fix. And we're charging big money to fix the flat tires and stuff because they were just hemorrhaging money. They were a startup tech company, basically. People don't realize that. It was all just stealing your data on their app and stuff. Like they weren't really making any money. They were just data collecting and selling the data. That's what these companies really were. They don't
give a fuck about making your life convenient from point A to point B.
No, not at all. This is a crazy part of the story. So we maintain all these scooters. And within the first 45 days of us doing maintenance on these things, Bird pays us like $67,000 for maintenance, right? In 45 days. So we're like, oh shit, like this is good. So we take advantage of it where all the other bike shops were like fighting against it. We're just like, well, the money's in these companies. Let's see how much money we can squeeze out of them.
Yeah.
You know, so we, you know, if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. That goes on for a while. Then they, you know, absolutely have to, you know, start their own maintenance program with their scooters. So they start doing their own maintenance. We lose that contract. And then we're like, all right, how can we still make money off these things? Well, we had all these Chinese connections. They had left like one scooter at our warehouse that still had the Bird like brain on it with the GPS and everything. So we take this thing apart. We end up buying they were just Segway scooters. They were consumer scooters that they would take the circuit board out of, put their circuit board on that hooked up to the app and had GPS on it. So we buy a consumer scooter, a Segway, and we take the head off of that one, put it on the Bird scooter, and it works like a consumer scooter. You don't need to unlock it. You don't need to do anything. You just turn it on and ride it. We're like, oh shit, are all these like this? So we end up importing a pallet of consumer circuit boards for Segways with like the plastic covers and everything. We import a pallet of them. We put them on eBay, and now we're selling the Segway circuit boards that convert a Bird scooter on the street to a consumer scooter. So people are buying these circuit boards, taking the Bird head off of these scooters, putting the Segway circuit board on,
and then they're good to go.
And then they're good to go. So
they're buying your product and then essentially just stealing those things, right?
Yeah.
But they fucked you, so it went full circle now.
I didn't advertise it as steal a Bird scooter. I'm just saying, if your Segway circuit board went out, you can buy one on eBay.
Yeah. Okay.
So we start selling these. We're the only company selling them on eBay. And we're selling them for like, I want to say it was like $70 or $90. It cost us $4. Dude, it got to the point where I converted one of my garages at my house into just a shipping center. And I had everything organized. I'd wake up in the morning, grab my coffee, I'd open my eBay. There'd be 30, 40 orders of these things. I'd hit print. It would print out all my labels. I'd go out to my garage. I'd fill, 40 orders, put them in a box, drive them to the shipping center, drop them off. And we were doing that like clockwork. We were making a bunch of money selling these circuit boards. Eventually, everybody caught on to it. And then it was a race to the bottom on selling these things on eBay. And then all of a sudden you couldn't make $4 on them. And we're like, all right, this ain't working anymore. So
it's weird how each phase of your business kind of has like a shelf life.
It does.
And it's
almost
like,
any business.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this is how the game's being played right now. You took advantage of it as well as you could, and then as that phase comes to an end, what's next?
Pivot. Yeah. So the last part of this story is a guy was working for me. His name's Rudy. He's from Brazil. He was working for me part-time, and he was working at Lyft scooters part-time, maintaining their scooter fleet. And he comes to me and he's like, hey, dude, the guy who runs the warehouse, they're going from Segways to their own proprietary scooters. So people stop stealing. And he's like, we have, I think it was 700 Segway Lyft scooters sitting at the warehouse that they want to take apart and just scrap. So I go meet with the guy at the warehouse and I'm like, how much does it cost you to scrap all these? Because you got to pay somebody to take them apart. Like what? He's just like, I don't know. It definitely cost me money to scrap them. And I was like, I'll give you, I think it was $20 a piece for them, something like that. And he's like, done. So dude, I buy 700 scooters for like $20 a piece, drive them all to my warehouse. We convert all of them to consumer scooters with the circuit boards we had, clean them up and sell them in our shop. Sell all 700 of those things. Like we have maybe $40 in them. We're selling for like $250. Sell all of them, in like 8-9 months or something like that. Make money doing that. And now we're in like 2019, right? And the bike business is still very stagnant and slow because of the scooter craze, but we've maximized as much as we can out of it.
Yeah.
You know? And now we're sitting there like, shit, what do we do now? We start building 4-wheel drive lifted vans down in Mexico and selling them here. We'd buy F-350 vans, take them to Mexico, put 6-inch lifts, 37-inch tires on them, put 4-wheel drive on them, bring them back to San Diego and sell them. I was flipping cars. I was doing anything to like supplement, you know, what the bike shop wasn't bringing in anymore. And all of a sudden COVID hits, right? We still have like almost 2,000 bikes sitting in China that we have deposits on. We just haven't shipped them over because business was slow. COVID hits, and then me and my business partner are like, shit, what do we do? Are they going to shut us down? What's going to happen? I mean, you have a COVID story too with what you were doing. But I remember him calling me. Here's another, you know, crazy moment where he calls me. I'm at home. And I was like prepping, like I had filled up a bunch of gas cans, got all my ammo ready. Like
the apocalypse
I don't know what the hell's gonna happen. So I'm like in the middle of like getting ready, and I was about ready to drive out to Arizona because I didn't want to be in California at the shutdown. And he calls me and he's like, dude, we got, you know, 2,000 bikes in China. We already have a 20%, 30% deposit on them. The guys in China are like, hey, it's really bad here. Either you guys ship these like this week and pay for them, or you might never get them. Like shit is crazy over here. So we're like, and so this is March of 2020 now. And I remember on that call, I was like, well, we got the money. I'm like, what's the downside of shipping these bikes over here? I'd rather have them than not be able to get them. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, let's get all of them over here ASAP.
I guess the downside is where you're going to put them, huh?
Yeah, we had the warehouse.
Oh, you had the warehouse still. Okay.
The downside was we're going to drain our accounts buying all these containers of bikes when business is slow. But I'm like, we already have a deposit. I don't want to lose the deposit. I'd rather have the inventory here, and that'll be like our savings account, right? We'll eventually sell them, even though it's slow. So we get all the bikes shipped over. They get here in May. Or no, I'm sorry. They get here to San Diego in April, and the shutdown had happened. And then like the end of April, beginning of May, the news went from everybody's out of toilet paper to everybody's out of bicycles. The minute these bikes hit port, right? So in May of 2020, we sold 1,200 bikes out of our bike shop.
Why was there such a big need for bikes?
Nobody could do anything. It was COVID. Like the only thing you could do was like ride a bike or go outside. Like you couldn't go to the gym.
So it was a blessing in disguise for that industry then.
Oh, dude.
Wow.
I think in May, I mean, we did, you know, the shop usually did about $100,000 a month. In May of 2020, we did $400,000. Like that's how busy it was, dude. And so remember, we're getting these bikes for $40 and selling them for $350.
Yeah.
You know? So we're making good money. There's huge margins on these things. So
how many bikes? How many bikes did you end up bringing over in those pallets?
It was almost 2,000.
Okay.
So, but so you know, during May, like everybody's out. So remember, for the last couple of years, a lot of shops went out of business because of the scooters. Mm-hmm. Other shops that were still hanging on had a ton of, you know, terms and credits with all these other, you know, bicycle companies and distribution and wholesale companies up in LA. So when the bicycle business got really hot, we didn't owe anybody money. We owned our inventory outright. So when I was calling all these warehouses up in LA every day, what do you got? Ship it to me. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they were like, well, I got 100 going to this shop and I got 50 left. And I'd say, does that shop owe you any money? Are they on terms for this? Because I'll drive and bring you cash right now. And they would cancel that order. I would drive to LA and hand them cash and take the whole inventory. So all day long, I'm buying up inventory out of LA. So I'm buying as many bicycles as I can throughout May and June and July. And through that rest of that year in 2020, we're just cranking. We're, you know, do millions of dollars in sales.
Wow.
And so it was a blessing, but it was our, you know, where we stood in terms of our finances and inventory and all that. It was all just taken risk and making sure we weren't over leveraged and all that is how we were able to capitalize on it. So we capitalize on that, and then Tank dies the end of 2020. I'm like, you know, I don't like hit like I don't crash and burn, but I'm not feeling good. October of 2020, and I end up going into the shop like that next day to try and just like clear my head, not be alone. And like the first customer walks in, they were giving me a little bit of an attitude, and I'm like, I chase them out of the shop. I'm all pissed off, and I start walking back. And Christy, the girl who worked for me for like 6 years, she like looks at me. She goes, "You don't need to be here right now." She goes, "Why don't you take some time off?" And I was like, that's exactly what I need. Drove home that day, put my cab over camper on my truck, grabbed my mountain bike, and I went and did a solo camping trip for like 33 days. And I just hiked and mountain biked every day.
Where did you go for that?
I left San Diego. I went out to Arizona, went to the Grand Canyon, went up to Horseshoe Bend, went to Bryce Canyon, Moab, all the way up through Utah. I went through Idaho, mountains outside of Boise, cut over to Oregon, spent some time in East Oregon, and then cut over to the coast, and then just basically took the coast all the way back down, Redwoods and Big Sur and everything, Santa Barbara, and then back to San Diego. Every single day of that trip, I either mountain biked or hiked every single day in silence. And I just kind of just sat in it and just thought about Tank and my life and what he meant to me. And, you know, it just was like a good kind of send off. And like, I felt like he deserved like a month of me like grieving kind of.
Well, bro, he was a big part of you getting your life back on track.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to honor him in some way.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was a way to do it. Where I wasn't distracted and I could like reflect on his life and my life and what he did for me. And that's what I did. And then I got back to San Diego the end of 2020. And then I decided I was done with the bike business. I wanted to move, you know, and I think his death kind of triggered all this.
Yeah, I was like kind of a new season now.
It was like the end of that era.
Wow.
You know, and I remember just being like, I need to get out of here. I need a new beginning. I was gonna move to Scottsdale and maybe take some time off. I was maybe gonna take my RV and you know, figure it out from there and travel a little bit. And my buddy Eric, who was actually with me the night I got arrested, we used to live together back then. He was a wild man, smoking crack and stuff. I mean, we were a disaster. Our apartment back then was disgusting. I think about our apartment when we were 22 and like my hands sweat. I can't even imagine. But good friend of mine was with me a long time, you know, in my youth, and, you know, we partied together. When I got off out of my trial and out of trouble and I moved to California, it took him maybe 2 years to get sober after that. So I cut him out of my life because I was like, this is part of the problem.
Yeah, of course.
Eric's part of the problem. So I didn't talk to him for about 6 years. And I was hearing people like from back home, they'd be like, "Oh, did you hear Eric got sober?" I'd be like, "Good for him. Hope I never see him again. God bless." And then he's out in San Diego about 10, 11 years ago, and he leaves me a voicemail. I got my number from a mutual friend, and I ended up meeting him, and we had a cigar or something, and he had been sober now for like 4 years. He had started a business out in Florida where they were getting people out of timeshares, and his business was just starting to rock and roll. He'd been sober for 4 years. I was, you know, not drinking or doing drugs anymore. I wasn't 100% sober. Like even today, I'll have a beer here and there.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm sober, but I don't, you know, I don't.
But you have control of your life.
Yeah, I don't get drunk or anything. But so, you know, I was on this trajectory out in California. He was on this trajectory in Florida. We had moved to opposite coast. He was sober building his life. I was sober building my life and my business. So we came back together like 11 years ago and became really close and good friends again. So now fast forward to 2021, he had gotten hit with a big lawsuit. He's about ready to exit his timeshare exit company for like $90 million, right? all like the big timeshare companies hear about him exiting his company and file lawsuits against him. So he fights this lawsuit for over a year, and it's like killing him, right? He's spending like $100,000 a week on lawyers trying to fight this thing. And he ends up just settling, filing bankruptcy on this company he was about ready to make, $90 million on. And he's at a fresh start now. So I get done with
got some wild rides.
Yeah, dude. I have a lot of crazy characters in my life. But so it's early 21. He gets done with his lawsuit, and I'm done with the bike business. I had just made some money, and he still had money, and he wanted to get out of Florida. I wanted to get out of San Diego. I was trying to get him to move to Arizona. His wife and his kids and his mother-in-law, like, all were against moving to Arizona. Shyla, Eric's wife, her mom was dying of cancer. She didn't want to move that far from Florida. So they decide Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'm single, no kids. Tank just died. And it was easy for me to move to North Carolina.
Okay.
So I just said yes. And we decided to get into the real estate acquisition business. Okay. Wholesaling is what it's called. And he tells me about this business. He's like, you can get contracts. You can get, sellers sign a purchase agreement, and then you take that purchase agreement to buy a house cash as is. And then you assign that contract for a higher price to an investor. So it's marketing. You market for your leads. It's sales. You get the properties under contract. And then it's fulfillment or dispositions, which is what, my responsibility was, which take this contract, go build the relationships with the investors and sell them these contracts, basically. I knew nothing about the industry. He knew nothing about the industry.
How did you guys even come up with this idea with neither of you knowing much about that industry?
It was very similar to what he was doing with the timeshare exit company. It was just marketing, leads, sales, fulfillment. Okay. There was somebody we knew in the industry, mutual friend of ours, but more friends with Eric, that told him about this industry, that they were just getting into it, said, hey, you'd be great at this. Eric calls me. He's like, hey, you'd be great to partner up on this if you're done with the bike business. He goes, let's do this. I said, okay, knowing nothing about it. I just needed a change. Mm-hmm. I said, yes. And I literally packed up my stuff and moved to Raleigh, North Carolina on a whim. And I drive out there, get an apartment, and instantly go to the office. We lease an office, and we're sitting there trying to figure this business out, right? Shyla, Eric's wife, gets there like a month later, and now there's the three of us business partners. We're trying to figure out, how do we build this business? That was May of 21. By December, we had done 1.6 million in gross profit.
Wow.
So Eric stayed in his lane with marketing and sales. He was, taking on the acquisition side, where he was handling the marketing, handling the sales team, locking up these contracts. I took the responsibility of dispositions, or the fulfillment, taking these contracts, coming up with a process on how to find investors and how to gain these relationships and assign these contracts to investors. Shyla did transactions on the title company side and all the admin stuff that, me and Eric are not good at. And we worked really well together, and we all stayed in our lane. And we over 3 years, we did about 420 transactions for $8.6 million in assignment fees or gross profit.
Wow.
So if we get a contract on a property for $100,000 to buy it cash, on average, we were taking that $100,000 contract and assigning it to a buyer for about $124,000. So we would make the $24,000 in between at close.
Okay.
So that's how you get paid.
And these investors are going through you just to streamline the process then. And for them, that's worth $24,000.
100%.
Okay.
Because they're good at flipping houses and buying and holding rentals. They're not good at sales and marketing and everything else that goes into this business, right? So it's needed in the real estate industry for flipping houses and buying rentals. You need wholesalers finding deals because investors are not good at it. It would be really hard to be a big flipper or a big buy and hold investor and have a sales team getting these deals. It's a lot of work, and you got to know what you're doing. You got to be a good at sales and all the systems and processes. It's hard to juggle both. So they're married, you know.
Did you become proficient at that side of the house from all the time in the bike industry?
I was really good at building relationships, and I was really good at talking to people in sales.
Okay.
It was all in person at the bike shop, but I noticed at the bike shop that I was naturally really good at making people feel comfortable, bringing their guard down, being, you know, personal and building rapport and getting people to laugh and trust me and buy something.
Other than that guy you chased out.
Other than the guy. There's a couple incidences that contradict that.
Hey, I've thrown a couple people out of here too, man.
It happens. I'm a very peaceful man now. I'm very even keeled, you know, especially since my trial. But there's been a few times in my life that old guy comes out of me a little bit. I can control it, thank God. But yeah, I'm imperfect.
Yeah, of course, bro.
So that's what we got into was real estate acquisitions. Built that business over 3 years, sold it, and then last year moved to Scottsdale or Cave Creek, Arizona, just north of Scottsdale is where I live. And all of the rest of last year, so we sell the company in like May or June. And then I move out to Scottsdale in July. And from July to December, all I did was coaching. And, you know, me and Eric have a big community. We coach this business. I was doing a lot of one-on-one stuff on my own too with businesses, teams, or individuals. And at the end of that year last year, I was like, man, I love coaching. I do think it's something I'll do probably for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. But I also need something tangible where I'm still doing the business that I'm coaching so I can stay up to date and still learn and be sharp about it.
Of course.
I want to coach what I'm doing. Yeah. I don't want to stop that, you know?
Well, I mean, and we mentioned it like in the beginning of the show, the world of coaching is getting kind of weird because there's an element. I saw this thing, I don't even remember who it was, but it's like, learn to be a life coach. And it's like coaching to teach people to coach. And it just becomes this like dog chasing its tail.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. I love what you just said. You're like, hey, you've built some successful businesses. You've made some good amounts of money. You have the resume to teach people how to do that. But you're like, even that's not good enough because I want to stay current in the industry and understand the different problems that are still arising and whatnot. And so I think that makes you a perfect fit for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, you know, I not that I didn't know this was going to happen, but like when we did sell the business and all I did was coach for 6 months, I started feeling fraudulent. Like, can I really coach something I'm not doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I did feel I was losing my edge and my sharpness on the coaching calls because I didn't have a team I was around all day training and hearing all the problems and taking over phone calls and solving issues and learning new problems with complicated transactions and solving those. Like I did feel like I was losing a step and it didn't feel good.
Yeah. And because you're standing in truth now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I have to make a jiu-jitsu analogy every episode. So here it is, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
But like if I were to stop spending any time on the mats, I'm no longer training, I'm no longer drilling, I no longer have a presence on the mats. How long is my ability to be a jiu-jitsu coach going to still hold validity? And the truth is not very long.
Not very long.
Because if you're not present, and it's something that I see in a lot of like special operations guys, and even cops, like a lot of guys from my former communities, they want to be out there training people all the time now, right? But the world's always evolving. So the tactics, techniques, and procedures that we used 5 years ago when we're going into a house, sometimes they have little relevance in today's world. And that's something that in that world it applies too. Staying current gives you a lot of validity to teach others.
Yeah.
And so it's cool that not only that you saw that, but you understood the necessity of staying sharp by staying in the grind, staying in the fight.
Yeah. And I would see other, there was a lot of other, wholesale coaches out there, and none of them were still in the business. Mm-hmm. They all started coaching, realized, oh, you can make a lot more money. It's a lot easier on the coaching side than it is to actually run the business. And they all, the minute they started getting traction with the coaching, they all stopped what they were doing.
Yeah.
It's a hard business. It's a hustle. It's a sales team. It's a lot of issues, but like for me, it's like, I'd rather run to the difficult path than take the easy way. It seems like the easy path is never the right one.
Yeah. Very rarely.
Very
Even
rarely.
though it fucking calls to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I always try to make my life path as difficult as possible. Always.
So then you come to that realization.
Yeah.
And what did you, so you ended up building a new company then?
So I started, this year I started building another company, and, we've had, I don't know, we've done, a couple $100,000 in sales, and I got another like close to 200 on the board that should close. So, it's catching traction. Hopefully do a little over $1 million this year with a small team, and then go from there.
Dude, it's crazy how there are guys like yourself that's just like, hey, you know what? Let's go build something, make it happen. And now you've done it several different times, and now you're on the track to make $1 million in a year, which is unheard of in a lot of people's circles. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you just went and had this idea, and now, have you ever seen that show? I think it's called 90 Day Millionaire, where it's an entrepreneur that says, you can take everything from me. I think he starts the series with like $500 in his pocket and a beater pickup truck. And he's like, in 90 days, I'm going to be a millionaire again. And it's exactly what you said. He like call a guy on Craigslist and start putting bikes together. And that's what he'll go out there and do until he can network, meet some people, build some relationships, and then starts this business. And it's like, on the outside looking in, that seems like it would be so difficult, and it is difficult for sure, but it's also possible. And I think a lot of people, like myself included, look at some of the stuff that you're doing and think like, man, how the fuck can you do that? You just go do it.
Yeah, you just got to do it. I think I remember the first month I made a lot of money. Like I've always, for a lot of years now, I've made enough money where I haven't had to like look at my checking account to see if I could afford something. Right. There was a month in 2022 where I made over $250,000 in 30 days. Right. And I remember calling my coach, and I was like, I just made over $250,000 this month. And I was like, it's not really moving the needle for me. Like I'm not excited that happened. It didn't fulfill me in any way.
So, I mean,
and I think because I have been like financially okay now for 15 years or something, it's never really the money for me, I guess. It's like, once you're kind of comfortable with like, not living above your means, and you prove that you can make money a lot of different ways, I think all the fear is just completely, and all the doubt kind of goes away, right? And it's like, now when I do something, it's not really like, oh, I'm going to make $1 million doing this. It's just, let's start day one. And how do I get there? And what do I got to focus on today to do it? Because I'm not desperate to make $1 million on this business this year.
Well, and desperate energy usually detracts from success.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So, I mean, you already know the money will be a byproduct of you putting in the hard work. So you're just really, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but are you simply just almost enjoying the journey of entrepreneurship for what that is then?
I mean, I still need to
build.
make money, right? I'm not like financially, like I can't retire tomorrow. But unless I like move to Mexico or something,
hey, that's always an option.
That's always an option. I got that in my back pocket. But I really enjoy having a team and being a coach. And when I started again a wholesale company or a real estate acquisition company this year, I switched my mindset to, well, first, let me tell you this. I did fail the beginning of this year. Mm-hmm. I hired way too many people. I thought I could start where I left off, and I overwhelmed myself and my team for a couple months, and it completely crumbled. We put 200 grand profit on the board, but in 10 weeks, we all were just so burned out from my psychoticness that it just fell apart. And, some people quit, some people got fired. I ended up just shutting it down for 2 weeks. And I was like, that wasn't right. Well, I put way too much stress and responsibility on myself and my team. I failed in a million different ways, right? And I realized you don't got to start where you left off after building something for 3 years. I need to remember how I started the last one. Mm-hmm. And then I restarted after that. And this has been a slow burn over the last few months. And we got another couple $100 grand on the board, So I did have a hiccup for sure. But the switch in my mindset with this team I have now was, if I'm on coaching calls every single morning with my community, then I need to look at my team as just another coaching call. And if I look at my team as, I'm just trying to coach my acquisition guys and be there and be a good leader for them, I'm trying to coach them to be the best acquisition guys on the phones they can be. Same with my dispo team, same with everything, my VAs, everything. So now I look at being an entrepreneur or owning this business or building this team as just being a coach. Because that's what I love. I love coaching people. I love when they find success of what I've taught them. And it's that's the important thing, because if you can be the best coach for your team and make them the best at what they do and pour into them, you're right. The money is going to be a byproduct. It has to be.
Yeah. But that's very interesting, because are there many guys in your space that are doing that simultaneously?
No.
Because what you're doing right now is you are honing your ability to coach and lead to the highest level with your own team. Because if you drop the ball on your own team, and you just said you did one time a year or two ago, and you felt the repercussions of that, that's doing exactly what you said a few minutes ago. That's forcing you to stay current, understand what's working, what's not working. And so you're literally honing your ability as a coach by keeping this company going.
Yeah. And I love it.
It's really cool.
I love it. When somebody on my team, overcomes an objection, or, gets a contract or does something that I see the joy, how great it is. It's that's what I'm focused. I don't really focus on myself and my success anymore. That's not the goal. I've realized over the years, if you focus on the team you have and their success, I just keep going back to this, but the money is going to come. That's why I think it's very easy to make money, because all you have to do is help other people make money and be successful. And that's going to come. If I can make my team the best they can be and focus on how can I make this person as much money as possible, I'm going to make money off of that, obviously. So it's let me focus on that. And it's not just a number I'm looking to make this year. It's this person needs to make 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month. How do I get them there? And that's helped me feel like I don't have all this stress on me about, I need to make $1 million this year. It's no, I just need to make this person, I need to make 2 people 200 grand this year, and I will make $1 million this year. You know what I mean?
Dude, it's so fascinating to me how because I always say it to people on the show, I'm not your guru, because I'm on the journey going from a government wage to trying to build generational wealth. And if you were to like see where I'm at on that journey, I still feel like I'm on a fairly new stage of this, right? In 2020, I put government service after 20 years in the rearview mirror and started becoming me for a living, right? But every single person I talk to, like yourself, Bedros, Andy, guys that have like made things happen. And now I have a network of people I have a lot of friends that have been very successful in their entrepreneurial endeavors. Every single last one of them echoes that sentiment. It's like when you make your journey about empowering people and enriching others, that's what will then in turn let you find success. But the second your focus of your mission is about you and your success and how many zeros are in your bank account, the mission fails.
100%.
And it's just, it's interesting seeing, I mean, literally without fail, every single person that's built something successful, when they move away from that mindset, they fail. And when they lean into that more, they win. And I have one buddy, his name's Jeremy Newsom, very, very successful person. He's like, dude, there's an energy around it. There's an energy around entrepreneurship. There's an energy around money. And when you stand in abundance, abundance comes to you. But if you don't, that well will dry up.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to hear the same story over and over and over, but it's because that story is truth.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
That's so
there's,
cool,
There's
man.
no other way to do it, and like a jujitsu school, it's like if you can pour into the students and like money's going to come.
Yeah.
Like you just got to get, like, I'm not saying you, I'm just saying you generally people need to get really good at one thing. You don't need to be good at everything.
Yeah.
Just get good at one thing. And if you can make killers on the mat here, like the ripple effect we were talking about earlier, they're going to tell somebody, that person's going to tell somebody, and you're going to, you already have a huge, school here, but it's like, that's just going to keep spreading because you're the best person teaching this.
Yeah.
You have the best facility. You have this, or like, if you can be the best at this one thing, it's a slow burn. Like nobody really is successful overnight.
Yeah.
It's like when we hit the ground running in the real estate game, within that first, 9 months, we were on all, me and Eric started going on podcasts and speaking at events and stuff. And people are like, these guys came out of nowhere, overnight success. It's like, we both owned other businesses for a long time.
Yeah.
Like you didn't see,
like you were working all night stocking shelves and then fixing bikes in the morning.
yeah, this overnight
not
success like happened over, 13 years, at that point. So it's like, it doesn't happen overnight. You just don't see everybody's journey.
I also think it's important to to highlight that like, not only is it not overnight, but for me, and it's cool seeing the correlations between the journey because it's almost always the same thing. You have to learn the power and the necessity of pouring into other people first. Because, dude, it's the exact same thing on the mats. Like when I first opened this place, I was still like, I want to be the best competitor I can be. So I'm going to do all the drills with the guys. I'm going to be on the mats with the guys. I'm always in the fight. I'm always in the mix. And at the time I thought that was like, hey, that's cool. Coach is in the fight with the guys. But what I found is that was a proficient way of building a very small, tough, intimate team, but that precluded most of society. Most people from my community don't want to join a team that's just a handful of guys trying to get as good as they can get. It wasn't until I stepped back and, like obviously just the natural progression of life. I'm getting a little older, dealing with some injuries, step away from making the time about my jiu-jitsu and pouring into others. And it's like throwing gas on a fire, dude.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because it was like when I started hiring way back when in my late 20s, mid 20s, I didn't know how to be a leader. I didn't know how to hire or manage or anything like that. And it was kind of the same thing. It's like, not everybody's you. And that comes with your community, your students, or the people on your team. It's like, once you realize not everybody is you and as psychotic as you and doesn't have the same goals as you is motivated in a different way.
Yep.
You know, it's like, oh, like all these personalities are different. What do they need? Like, well, let me put their needs in front of my own and help them in the way that they're going to learn the best or be motivated the best, you know? And until you like really understand your team on a personal level, you're not going to be a good leader, you know? Like you got to understand not everybody, you know, some people are going to be extremely motivated by money. And like we talk about, like, if we talk about like bonuses or something like that, or how to reward somebody, you know, maybe a single mom with 2 kids at home could use a week off paid instead of, you know, $2,000 bonus or something. Like you got to realize like, what are their needs? What motivates them and steer your leadership towards that, you know?
Well, that's pretty fascinating because like, you know, I've referenced the book, The 5 Love Languages, fairly often on the show, but usually talking about relationships with a significant other. But I guess it applies to your employees as well. Like, what is their love language as an employee? What can you do or treat them, or how do you, what techniques do you have to implement to make them feel like they're a more valued member of the team? And I guess it would be different for everybody.
It's different for everybody.
So what a real, true leadership capability to be able to step back and be like, okay, I know what I would like in this situation, but what does he like? What does she need? And then adjust accordingly.
And it boils down to not just their motivation and their needs, but their style of communicating or how you can communicate with them or their style of learning. Like I've read Extreme Ownership a couple of times.
Of course.
I, you know, went to one of Jocko's events, front row again, and got to meet him and chat with him a little bit too, and do workouts with him and stuff at that event. And I've learned a lot from him in that book of like taking ownership. And, you know, not everybody has my goals, my drive, my brain, right? And you can tell me something and I'll implement it right away and get it done and understand it. That's how my brain works. Not everybody's like that. And when I'm, you know, I'm not telling somebody to do something on my team. I'm telling them this is the process. Let me teach you how to do it. But more importantly, let me tell you why we do this and why it's important. I think, you know, bosses tell you to go dig a hole. A leader will say, let me show you how to dig this hole in the most efficient way possible. But more importantly, let me explain to you why this job or this task is so important and why we need to do it this way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Bro, that's fucking powerful.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's a guy with a shovel and it takes him 30 minutes to dig the same hole, but they're going to have 2 very different energies.
Yeah. It's going to be, you know, part of their purpose of like, if you tell me to go dig a hole because you just tell me to go do it, or you tell me, hey, I'm going to show you how to dig this properly. And I'm going to tell you why it's so important. Because when you're done digging this hole, it's going to help this part of the process or this person get to the other part of the process. So this is a big responsibility. And that's why I'm putting this responsibility on you, because I know you're the best person for it and you're going to get it done. Like you're going to be like, oh, fuck. Hell yeah.
We all want to work for people like that.
Yeah, of course. I have an 18-year-old working for me or with me right now, Lucas. This kid came to me in October of last year, 18 years old. He just graduated high school. He went to a real estate event in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I had moved from. He met a buddy of mine, Terry Thayer, who's a home builder out there. He goes up to Terry and he goes, hey, I want to get into real estate. I don't know where to start. I just graduated high school. I'm not going to college. He had a scholarship for soccer. He said, I want to get into real estate instead. Terry gives him my number, says, call Tony. He's the one that can help you get into it. He calls me, talk to him for 2 hours. This 18-year-old kid. Ma's from Peru, dad's from the Dominican. Chatting with him, I'm like, well, Lucas, it's $10,000 to join my program, like as a beginner, right? but I'm going to teach you everything you need to know. If you join the program and do everything that I teach you, you're going to find success, right? He has his aunt call me, his ma call me. Like, I'm talking to this kid and his family over weeks, right? They don't have a spare 10 grand, right? So he has to scrounge this money together. He borrows money from his dad, his brother, his aunt. He gets this $10,000 together. He pays me on like a Friday. I onboard him on Monday. Show him exactly what this program's going to do for him. Tuesday is his first coaching call. Introduce him to the community, coach him, all that. Wednesday, he calls me and he goes, dude, this dude at work, I've been telling everybody I'm in real estate. This dude at work, he was washing dishes part-time at a restaurant. This dude at work said he just inherited his aunt's property and he wants to sell it. I was like, perfect. It's in Raleigh. Yeah. All right. We'll go out to the property, schedule a time to go out there, take contracts with you and walk the property, take photos, act like you know what you're doing and give me a call like I'm your partner on this. All right. The next day goes out to this property. I say, call the kid and say, if you bring a contract and the offer's good, is he willing to sign? He calls, the kid says yes. Goes out there, walks the property, takes a bunch of pictures. The kid wanted, I think, 250 grand for it or something, 220 or 230 for it. It was, like a trap house at this point. It was disgusting. Lucas calls the kid and says, hey, if I come out there with an agreement and we agree on a number, are you willing to sign? Yes. As he's telling him that, guy's like, well, I want 220. The lowest I'll take is 200. I might say yes to 170.
Yeah.
Kid needs money. So
170 it is.
So Lucas goes out there. He's taking photos. He's acting like he knows what the fuck. He doesn't. He calls me and he's like telling me about everything. He sends me the photos and I'm like, offer him 150. Let's see. Offers the kid 150. Kid accepts. They sign off on the contract. I know what the property is worth. I know what I can sell it to an investor for. I don't tell Lucas this. He's driving home. He's in my program for 4 days and this happens. He calls me and he's like, dude, I got it signed. I got a contract. Like, oh my God. He's like, is this a good deal? This is a good deal, right? I was like, Lucas, you just made $100,000.
Wow.
The next day.
Dude, I feel that, man.
Dude, next day he calls a buyer. I know. Assigns the contract for $250. And 3 weeks later it closes and Lucas gets a check for $100,000. The last
18-year-old kid.
18.
But here's a really important thing to bring up because we have a financial coach and he was an $11,000 buy-in for his program that my wife is doing, right? And if you don't have a decent buy-in, you're not going to get, like, you could have said to Lucas, hey, I feel for you. You're a young kid. I'll comp you. Why don't you just hop in? But now he doesn't have the buy-in that he had having to borrow money from his auntie and his uncle or whatever the case may be. It forces people to show up.
Yeah. They got way more skin in the game.
They got way more skin in the game.
It, yeah.
And just like with our coach, my wife is already, I want to say she is almost 4 or 5x'd the buy-in price already.
Yeah.
So it's like, we almost joke that like the course is actually free, but you just have to put money up front to show that you have skin in the game.
Yeah.
And then hearing you tell that story, identical.
Yeah.
And
it's the
you
same.
just changed that kid's whole life because not only did you put $100,000 in his pocket, but it expanded his way of thinking and understanding. And bro, for me, that's been a big part of my whole life as a cop. $100,000 a year in benefits. I got 3 little kids and we can go on a vacation once a year. That feels like we're doing okay. And now that I've 4x'd it, I realize, $100,000 a year is, looking back now in hindsight, it almost feels like poverty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
you're paycheck to paycheck.
You're paycheck to paycheck, and you don't know how paycheck to paycheck you are until you break out of that. and like 18-year-old kid learning that lesson. That's
Dude,
fucking
what's
rad,
his future
dude.
gonna look
Yeah,
like?
it's whatever he wants it to be, right?
It was funny because his mom's from Peru, and she called. I talked to her before they paid, right? And I remember the last thing I said to her, I was like, she's like, oh, I saw your videos and you got all these tattoos and blah, blah, blah. I was like, listen, I go,
were they apprehensive at all?
oh,
then?
God. Yeah.
Okay. Like, are you fucking scamming my son?
It was a family decision to join the group. So they were, that's why I was talking to his whole family. And I told her, I said, listen, I go, I'm going to treat Lucas, your son, like he's my son.
Mm-hmm.
I go, there is no possible way I will let this kid fail. I was like, I understand how much money this is, and you guys don't have access to tons of extra money. I'm like, I get all that. And I said, that's why I know my responsibility is so important. I know I'm the best person that he could hire because I know how serious that is. And I don't take it for granted. I said, there is no possible way I will let this kid fail. I said, I will treat him like my own son. This is the last thing I said. And I said, if he joins this community, because I'm confident in myself.
Yep.
I said, it will change his life and your life. I promise you. I said that to her. And then less than a month later, he got $100,000. Paid everybody back he borrowed the money from, paid his mom's credit card debt off, which was like 10 grand. And since has done like 4 or 5 or 6 more deals. He's done close to 200,000, in less than a year.
Wow.
And recently, a couple of months ago, he moved from North Carolina to Arizona to work with me.
Okay.
And he just, it was hard for him he was still living at his mom's house. He was working from his bedroom, doing deals. He wasn't living up to his potential. And he called me and he's just like, I need to be around you every day. And I need you to teach me everything you know. And I know I can't do this on my own. He's like, I just want to come work with you. And I was like, let's do it.
That's so rad.
But it goes back to the communication and stuff too. Like he's 18 years old. Like I'm over twice his age. I don't remember being 18 years old.
No. And now, because my oldest is 16, you realize like when you're that age, you don't think you're still a kid, but you are.
Oh God, yes. And I love him to death. Like literally feels like he's like part of like my family. I really do feel that way. And he coaching him and mentoring him and having him around me 9-10 hours a day now, it is forcing me to be very patient.
Mm-hmm.
It's teaching me a lot. It's teaching me to be patient and to explain things to him and his style of learning because he is so fresh.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's helping me be a better mentor or coach anyway. Because 18 years old, man, teaching and coaching somebody 18 is way different than somebody who's 25 or 30 who has life experience and stuff like that. He is very green, and if he doesn't get something right away, I can't get frustrated with him because it's my fault for thinking he could.
Yeah.
10 years ago, he was 8. It's crazy.
How cool is that this process, though, is continuing to hone your blade, too.
Mm-hmm.
And like you just said, like, hey, I want to stay current and in the fight and making deals and signing deals because you knew that you needed to be doing that to stay current as a coach. And then look what's a byproduct of that. Mm-hmm. You're like, dude, I'm learning new leadership lessons.
Yeah.
And how to talk to people and how to articulate things because his age is a very new challenge for you.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's just expanded your skill set too.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
And it definitely forces me to, be me, and that was something my coach, I have a coach I've had forever, life coach, business coach, whatever you want to mentor, I should say. He was an old football coach of mine, Coach Pokey. And I've talked to him on a monthly basis most of my life. He knows me better than probably anybody. But he, as I was telling him about Lucas moving out to Arizona to work with me, and like the responsibility and how much I really, want to, help this kid and I want to be the best I can be. And that was something he said. He's like, well, he goes, the best mentor you can be for him or anybody on your team. He's like, people are drawn to you for who you are. He's like, you have to just stick to your process, your convictions, your core values. He's like, be even more who you are, be even more disciplined. If you wake up at, the exact same time every day, which I do, and you eat the exact same breakfast and wear the exact same clothes and work out at the same time and do your cold plunge and do this, he goes, you have to do that even more extreme. So these people that are drawn to you, they're drawn to who you are. He goes, if you have that dialed in, then you are going to be the best mentor or leader for them. If they're drawn to you, like, then be you at an extreme level. Dude. And that gave me chills when he said that. And I was like,
be you at an extreme level.
Yeah.
That might be the episode title.
I love it.
Because as you're saying this, I'm thinking about my life and who I am and what value I bring. And I was like, I could be a little more me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I don't know if you feel this way. Like, people will say to me a lot, oh, you're so disciplined. You're so this, you're so that. It's like, I'm very consistent. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like I'm disciplined in a lot of aspects of my life, because what seems like discipline to somebody looking in is just my daily routine.
Yeah.
I've turned a lot of disciplines into a routine, and discipline to me now is going above and beyond that. Like I ruptured both my tricep tendons last year, so it kind of
were you doing skull crushers with too much weight?
I power lifted for a long time, and I was under 200 pounds, and when I first started, this was a long time ago, I was under 200 pounds, but like when
you were competing.
I competed in my 20s,
okay,
but I still kind of power lifted the rest of my life. I split both my tricep tendons up the middle when I was like 27, 28. And then I just lived with the pain until last year when God decided I'm rupturing these things. Whatever threads are left hanging on your elbow, we're going to get rid of those now.
So they both ruptured
at the same time.
What's
it wasn't
the chances
even
of that,
it wasn't
dude?
even extreme either. I was snowboarding in Park City. It was my third day snowboarding. It was deep powder. So I was probably, I was getting up and down a lot, probably using, muscles, and I was tired, using muscles I wasn't used to, and tired and stuff, and dehydrated. And one day, the third day on the mountain, I stopped, looked up the mountain, and just lost my balance, just put my hands down to brace myself. And both my, but they were, I'm telling you, like when the doctor repaired him, he's like, they were split up the middle for so long. He's like over half your tendons on both sides just look like shredded cheese. He's like, how the hell have you been living like this? And I was like, I don't know.
Bro, what's the chances of them both popping at the same time, though? That feels like almost statistically impossible.
It was brutal.
So it's like sometimes this fucking like universal alignment seems like it's bringing good and power. And sometimes it's like, hey, we're forcing you to slow down right now.
Yeah, it was brutal.
How long ago was that?
Like a year and a couple months ago.
Okay, so did you have to have them surgically reattached?
Yeah, which was 6 weeks apart from each other, so I could still wipe my ass. So I did the right arm first, reattached. 6 weeks later, did my left arm. I've lost like 10 pounds, because of that surgery, but I've been staying lean. I haven't been trying to bulk up again, but like, at 181 pounds, I was benching 415 raw, squatting over 500, deadlifting 600. So I was always like a freak. I was like a freak strength when I was younger. I never took supplements, gear, nothing, like my whole life.
Have you got on the TRT bandwagon yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because if not, let's talk offline.
Yeah, no, I finally did when I started getting, more injuries.
Yeah.
And I feel great now, and my elbows healed up in record time. I took, BPC 157, TB 500, got on a little bit of growth hormone and exosomes. I did a couple systemic injections of that. And then, I take a little bit of TRT. And I remember my physical therapist, I was like, when you see people heal faster from these ruptured tendons and the reconstructive surgery, I'm like, what is the main thing you see that helps them heal faster? And she goes, age. And I was like, that's the only factor? And she goes, yeah, your age. It's going to take, she's like, you'll be in those braces 10 weeks each. You won't be able to lift a weight for about a year.
You're
and
like, watch this.
Dude, in 4 months, I was back at the gym full time. So
age comes second to belief.
Yeah. Belief. And I was like, good. Age meaning, hormones.
Yeah.
Right. I'll take a little bit of tests, a little bit of growth and some peptides, and I'll be back at it.
Did they take grafts from
no
like other tendons, or what?
No.
What was
So
the procedure?
So a little less than half of my tendon is what was still attached and ruptured. The other one was shredded for years. So they cleaned up all the shredded part of each of those tendons. And then they took the good part that had just ruptured and they pulled it down as far as they could, sewed it to another tendon that runs down your tricep. So it's located a little different. And then they put a pin right here. So it's about 2 inches higher than where it was attached on both sides. I can feel the pin. So my tricep starts a little higher on my arm. But that's it. I feel strong and good. No pain.
Well, I know we were talking about it right before we started pushing record, but I'm not quite sure how stretched tricep tendons would hold up in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I was always scared.
Yeah, I would be too, man.
They hurt my whole life because I tore them so early in my 20s that I was always like, when people wanted me to, like, even boxing and stuff, it would scare me. But like, I'm like, man, jiu-jitsu, I was like always so freaked out. My arm would hurt, or like I would hurt myself. But now that they're ruptured and they're reconstructed, I feel they're better than they've ever been, to be honest.
Well, fuck, bro. I mean, you could certainly, I tell people all the time, because that's a big concern that people get in here. I have this injury, I have this ailment, and I just tell people all the same thing. Like, you can do what you can with what you have.
Yeah.
But it's up to you to protect that.
Right.
And there's different ways that you can do that. But the most important thing is just being very intentional about who you train with. Mm-hmm. Like, if you were to start training jiu-jitsu, don't hop in the hornet's nest with the 25-year-olds that are trying to kill each other. And maybe eventually you do get there, but there's a process of understanding like how your body's going to hold up, what's going to work, what's not going to work.
Right.
And if you just take it slow, and I know this is hard, it's even hard for me because like at the end of the day, there's a competition happening between you and the other man.
How could you not?
And I don't want to lose.
No.
Right. And so like, bro, and I've been doing jiu-jitsu 22 years now, and I still get caught up in like, I'm not going to fucking lose. And it's like, dude, that's not what it's about 24/7. Like, it's good to hone your warrior spirit and try and win and like challenge yourself. That's all good, but never if it's to the detriment of other aspects of your life, i.e. your physical body.
Right.
And so like, if you find a good gym, go into it and understand that that's part of the process.
Right.
But you're ultimately responsible for protecting yourself more than any of your teammates.
Yeah.
And that might mean tapping early and tapping often,
right,
while you learn kind of where your body's at.
Yeah, where's the limit,
you
right?
know? But tapping sucks, though.
Yeah.
It does, man.
It's the ego thing, right? But yeah, if you had a good coach that could teach you, right?
Yep.
Then you'd be fine. But
well, fuck, bro. If you, I know I threw this out here, but my program's tomorrow. And we got 9 people, and it was set up for 10. So no pressure. I'll just throw that out there. If you think it can work, you're welcome. But we're starting with an hour and a half of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say that.
Is there anybody going to that's never done jiu-jitsu?
I'm not quite sure. I know about half of the guys that are going to be here.
Yeah.
I don't know the other half. And so I'm not sure what their background is. But bro, I also like right out of the gates, we're going to have that discussion. It's like, hey, this is a whole day we're spending together.
Yeah. Don't blow your nut in 10 minutes.
It's not about trying to be the biggest dick in the room. It's about sharing time and energy with cool people.
Yeah.
You know,
I love it.
And so
we'll see if I can. I don't know. We'll see. I got so much stuff going on back home. I'll see if I can switch up the flights and stuff.
Okay.
But, it's a possibility for sure.
Well, keep me posted. Yeah, we're at 2.5 hours. We got to wrap it up. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we worked our way through it. Let people know, because this is a cool thing, man. Like, being a cop and a soldier, a lot of people from those professions consume this podcast. Sure. But a lot of people from those professions are also looking for what the next stage of life could be. Mm-hmm. You're telling a story about an 18-year-old kid making $100,000 in a month. It's probably going to have some people's eyebrows raising, right? And so it's like, if people are interested in who you are, what you're about, your coaching programs, just give them where they can find you, where they can contact you. And then, like I said before we started recording, somebody's life will change from us sitting down and doing this.
I hope so, man. Yeah, thanks again for having me on. This has been fun.
It was.
I told you I could talk forever. I
like it, dude. I hate it when I have, every once in a while you have someone in here that's like, it's like trying to pull teeth to get them to talk. And it's like, why did you want to do a podcast? Yeah. This is what we do.
No, you're a great host, man. It's been, a lot of good back and forth. So I appreciate it. But yeah, it's the Tony Mont, MONT, on every platform, YouTube, Instagram, mostly, I would say those two. My YouTube channel's starting to get some traction. I got some good podcasts on there, some good training on there, wins and loss videos on there too. Instagram, I teach a lot of what I do on Instagram. Like I always tell everybody, like if you looked at every one of my reels over the last 3 years, you'd be a master at, what I do. So I give out a lot of free game on there. But yeah, I have a link in my bio on Instagram. You can fill out a form and get a call from my team and see how we can help. But that's what we do. I mean, we teach, people how to acquire real estate. And then from there, once you get a contract, there's a million things you can do with it. You can flip a house, you can hold a rental, you can wholesale it like I do a lot of and make, quick, good money. You can do this part-time, you can do it full-time, you can do it as a one-man band, make a good supplemental income. You can build a small team, make really good money, or you can build a multi-million-dollar business. It's a really good industry. And I love teaching people how to do it.
Fuck yeah, dude. No, I'm considering fucking signing up now.
It's so funny, man. Whenever I go to a Bedros event and I sit at a table and tell people what I do, it's somebody always like signs up for the coaching program. Like, I want to do this, like even a little bit.
Hell yeah.
It's great, man. It's changed my life. It's what got me into coaching. Like I said before, once you prove you can make money, it stops becoming about that. And I'm so glad I got into this industry because I can coach people how to do it. And I've created a platform. And so that part of it's been the biggest blessing for me.
I love that, dude. Well, thanks for coming out. I know you flew up here for the show. That's a big commitment. I appreciate that. And I'll put all your contact stuff in the show notes below so people can swipe up and go check out your content. And again, guys, if you're interested in becoming something different, you have to do something different.
Yeah.
And so step through that door. Like, write that check, like hiring coaches, going through programs, mentorships. Like, the more you invest in yourself, the more success you're going to find. And so,
100%. I'll leave the audience with just this too, because it's something I think is really powerful. I read a book, "The Obstacle is the Way," and there's a quote in there that we all have the opportunity to write the story we're ultimately going to tell, and that starts with moving to California, calling on the Craigslist gig. Like, write your story, because 5 years from now, 5 months from now, 10 years, 20 years from now, you're going to tell the story of your life. And you have the opportunity right now to be able to write whatever story you want. It's up to you, right? It's your responsibility. So just take action. It's not hard to make money. You just got to take action.
Well, I'll leave it at that, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.